Sawadika and greetings from Thailand. I'm Abel Wanamakok. I feel a great honor to be one of the speakers for Corporate Diva's Global Perspective on Women Leadership and Diversity. And I look forward to connecting with all of you on March 6th and 7th. Sawadika.
Hi everybody, I'm Philippa Matthewson and I'm Director and Lead Consultant at Transium, where I work with business. I'm Philippa Matthewson and I'm Director and Lead Consultant at Transium, where I work with business owners and business leaders in the area of employee engagement and company culture. It gives me great pleasure to invite you to join me at the Corporate Diva Virtual Summit 2021, which is happening on the 6th and 7th of March. The theme of the summit this year is Global Perspectives on Women Leadership and Diversity, which is a topic that's really close to my heart. I'm really honoured, in fact, to be part of a panel where we'll be discussing the significance of diversity in corporate leadership. With over 21 speakers from 12 different countries across the globe, the summit is aimed at transforming female professionals into the leadership of the future by focusing on areas that are really imperative to their professional growth. So I personally invite you to join me on the 6th and 7th of March at the Corporate Diva Virtual Summit 2021. Click on the link below.
Singh. I head corporate bank operations at Deutsche Bank. I'm honored and privileged to be speaking at the Corporate Diva Virtual Summit on the 6th and 7th of March, which is focused on perspectives on global leadership and diversity. And I'm privileged to be speaking on a panel which is about the importance of diversity in corporate leadership. There are more than 21 different speakers from 12 countries, and the summit is aimed at focusing on topics that help women in their professional growth. So looking forward to seeing you there. Just click on the link below to join.
Hi, I'm Amaracha, and I'm excited to be part of the panel discussion on work-life balance for women leaders at Corporate Divas Virtual Summit 2021. I'm the co-founder and executive creative director of Kava, a boutique advertising agency in Singapore. You know, especially now in this pandemic climate, the idea of balance and how we function in our multidimensional roles is completely different from what we knew or understood in the past. So join me and discover how you can find that inner peace and calm as you balance kids, family, work, hobbies, and everything in between on 6-inch heels gracefully.
I'm Amrita Huja, a communication consultant and a strong believer in women leadership. Come join me on 6th and 7th March at the Corporate Diva Women Leadership Forum. It's got speakers from across 12 countries and it's completely free. So just go down to the link, register, and I hope to see you all on March 6th.
Good afternoon, one and all. We are thoroughly soaked in gratitude and seeing you all investing your time in your self-growth and learning the global perspective on women leadership and diversities. I'm your host for next 2 days and would be walking you through this eminent, immaculate 21 speakers across the continent, 12 countries, and giving their perspective on the specially carved out 6 panels we have spanned across 2 days. So just stay tuned and look forward to what's coming in next. We'll start the webinar shortly. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are ready to get started. And before you learn from different speakers who are present and already excited and thrilled for the next panel, it is very important for me to walk you through something which was just a seed 8 years ago and how it has gone as a plant and now is sheltering the global umbrella here. So let's have a sneak peek into the journey of corporate diva evolution right now.
All you people out there, be a part of the corporate diva journey. Corporate diva came into being with my interactions with women at work and understanding the lack of a platform which would celebrate them keeping their physical beauty aside. Corporate diva wants to establish its niche in that segment which blends between the two, wherein you're bringing professional women, credible women, but you're also working on their social skills, their corporate interaction skills. We're looking at identifying leadership qualities, grooming them in terms of corporate grooming and etiquettes and things like that. So a blend, a midway to a social or a completely professional interaction is why Corporate Diva and the importance of it. Corporate Diva is a safe, non-judgmental platform for women leadership development. The platform not only addresses to familiarizing women with the nuances of leadership, but it also addresses to the support and upskilling need of women professionals, enabling them to transform into women leaders. The vision of Corporate Diva is to be the go-to platform for any woman across the globe who is in need of genuine, unbiased, affordable, yet result-oriented guidance, mentoring or coaching to step up and excel in her leadership journey and emerge as a leader. The need for Corporate Diva arises from an intent of enabling women to own their growth. Often women rely on their organizations, managers, professional ecosystem, social ecosystem for taking steps towards their progress and their growth. They must realize that self-growth and progress need to be owned by self, and therefore the need for a woman to invest in her own self. After a rigorous selection process, women are onboarded for the learning programs and the various cohorts of Corporate Diva. These cohorts range from 2 days to 3 months. Right from women in university getting corporate ready, to activation and realization of emerging women leaders, to the seamless segue of senior women leaders into the boardroom, to returning career women and women entrepreneurs. The platform addresses to all the upskilling needs of these women professionals through coaching, mentoring, learning, and therefore leading to transformation. After the completion of the various learning programs and cohorts that a woman enrolls for, she gains access to a larger ecosystem of the Corporate Diva tribe. The tribe comprises of the women who've been through cohorts of Corporate Diva and, having gone through the selection process, are in complete alignment of creating an ecosystem where women build each other. Along with that, the Corporate Diva tribe also gets an opportunity to be a part of the various campaigns, seminars, conferences, programs that the Corporate Diva platform organizes for women professionals.
But it's just that one morning I wake up and saying, what is it that stopped me from getting there? I think it's my mindset about diva, and it's such a stipulated, limited mindset about diva is about blah, 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 right? Those little constrictions, and I didn't want it to be boxed in that. And the day I broke out of that box, right, is when I told myself, I want to be here and probably look at how this can be redefined and presented. And I guess it's also about me being able to meet other individuals. And yeah, it's really about networking and building relationships.
Corporate Diva holds a very special place in my heart because this is the first courageous step that I have taken for my personal development in my life. Before this, I could never even think about investing time and patience and effort into my own development.
Forum that she's put together is of tremendous value to young working executives because there is access to senior leaders and there is access to their real experiences in various aspects.
Platform that you provide for young girls to become leaders is amazing. I can already see the partnership and then the enthusiasm between the tribe. The only one thought that I'm left with is I wish we had a forum like this when I was younger for my professional growth.
All right. So I hope you are totally soaked in this wonderful journey of evaluation. And this is the time to put your hands together for the brains behind this particular forum, this powerful platform which has transformed many lives together. Deepika Trehan. Deepika Trehan is a nurturing, creating impact beyond the glass ceiling. And you all witnessed it just now via this journey, which we have transformed in last 8 years. Founder of the How Forum and Corporate Diva, her organization work across verticals of holistic employee well-being. A women leadership development platform, Corporate Diva, aims at transforming women professionals into women leaders. The platform addresses the upskilling and support needs of the entire life cycle of women professionals, from getting women in university corporate ready to realization and activation of emerging women leaders, to segueing women into senior leadership, to returning career women and women entrepreneurs. Corporate Diva has enrichment for one and all. Deepika Trehan has been awarded as Top 100 Global Diversity and Inclusion Leaders by ET Now, awardee of representing India on a 4-week scholarship to Israel for Innovation in Women's Health program. She has been applauded in person by Ms. Cherie Blair for her work in women leadership development and honored as iconic women by Women Economic Forum. She is also listed as Top Impactful Women CEO, building women leaders in times of the COVID pandemic, and has recently been awarded as Karnataka's Top Women Leader. May I request all of you to put your hands together for Deepika Trehan and encourage all the participants to use the emoji as much as possible to show your reaction. Welcome on board, Deepika. How does it feel to host a global summit after a journey of 8 years?
Thank you, Hina. Uh, I'm moved when I saw the evolution video. It just brought back so many memories. It's been a long journey, right from the start of it and establishing and redefining Diva to where it is leading to a global impact. I think Providence has been kind, and thank you for the beautiful team that one has developed over the years.
All right. So before we go ahead, we would like to understand from you, Deepika, what was the turning point in your journey that has inspired you to embark on this wonderful entrepreneur journey where you are thinking just anything and everything under the sun for the development of women?
Would love to share that, Hina. But before that, I take ownership in terms of informing the audience that life we're still in a pandemic. uh, Human life has never been so fragile before. In fact, we fought wars, we've had so many calamities that came across, but the wars always had a war zone, right? Diseases always had their symptoms, but now is a time where humanity has been caught totally unaware. And um, and and there are medical emergencies at the drop of the hat happening all across the globe, and which is why, sadly, Mr. Abhinav Bindra had to join us for this conversation at the inauguration of the summit. But there's been a medical emergency at his place this morning, and he's been kind enough of course, yes, he expresses his. Uh, he's sorry for not being able to make it today, but he's promised he is going to be a part of the summit. He is coming. We just have to figure out, somewhere tomorrow you should have a conversation and a glance with him. And that is why I wish each one of you safety, health. I think it just takes us back to the old proverb which says health is wealth. So take care, dear people. um, on that note, I start with answering Hina's question as to what was the turning point, what actually got me to create a platform which was safe, which allowed women to be vulnerable and share their vulnerabilities, and at the same time become strong building blocks for each other. And that turning point was, when I was growing up, I was a very ambitious young woman professional. I had my pretty much at a young age, I had my goals clear. I knew what I wanted to do with life, and how I wanted to go forward, and that whole mind map in the mind. But then, life happens. There are times where plans change, and it might sound very disturbing at that time that, hey, I had planned for this, and I've been put into a situation which is completely, I think, spectrum apart. But it turns out that I think Providence sees it, has a bigger picture in mind. So while I was, progressing very speedily in my career, I had to move countries, and I had to be on a forced sabbatical because of visa issues and things like that. And that was the time one was grappling with lack of self-identity. That was the time that one was grappling with, what do I do next? What value do all my qualifications have? Where is my credibility? Because I was just in a foreign land with no self identity and also of my work. And that was the phase where I felt that I wish I had a support system, a support mechanism where I could fall back on, whether at work or not, but I could just come forth and share what I was feeling, what I was going through, and just gain, kind of support and knowledge from an ecosystem where I could, even though if I was temporarily on a sabbatical phase, I could at least put pieces together and build myself and take that phase as a learning. And that lack of an ecosystem, that lack of a support group, that lack of a platform where I could be as honest to self and where I could be as vulnerable to share what was going on in my life and no ray of support, was what led me to build, uh, first my organization, the Health of Women Forum, and then this platform wherein, with a purpose of bringing women together, telling them that do not doubt your credibilities, telling them that you're not alone, and telling them that you always have a tribe to fall back on. So that was the turning point. That was the start of the journey.
That was immense, and I'm sure you have put all your learnings of your experience, what you wanted in the platform, which was seen in the video very clearly. So, what makes you so passionate about women leadership, Deepika? Why only women? I mean, I understand being a woman, it's like a soft corner or a pull over there, but why just the focus on women leadership?
You know, with my exposure to so many women in India and abroad, let's face it, and we have statistics to back it up, that women are lagging behind in getting their due in terms of their professional capabilities, in terms of them showing up on the boardrooms, in terms of them showing up as, people making decisions. So, and I think in terms of when you look at credibility, a woman brings a whole lot of value, to the workplace. In fact, just today morning, I was reading an article which says that all these years of gender inequality has costed the world about $70 trillion in terms of the economic impact of women not being in the workforce. So, and there are qualities that are very innate to a woman. There is the world is talking empathy, the world is talking being human and showing the human side of business. That comes very naturally more to women, and I'm not negating the men here, because I think I've had a line of men who've really been the supporting pillars to my own journey as well. But I think women definitely need the nudge, and and that's why the need for focusing on women, because an educated women, like they say that, educate a man, you educate a family, but educate a woman, you educate the village. So that's why the importance.
Very well said. The ecosystem is just the women are the pillar of ecosystem, and it is very well summarized, Deepika. What got you conceptualize this global summit?
That's an interesting one, and yeah, so that's very, very recent. I mean, I can even tell you the date. November 7th is when I sat down and I told myself that, I think the brightest silver lining to this entire dark cloud of the pandemic has been global connectivity. And we've all been, working in our individual spaces in terms of contributing our bit towards a more gender equal, world. But I think it was time enough to have global perspectives, conversations happening at a global level where people could be a part of it from the comfort of their home at the click of a link, and leverage technology and learn from it. And bottom line being that to enable um, every little girl who has a dream to build onto that dream, to enable every woman at work grappling with challenges to let her know she's not alone, and for every man who is doing his best to support and bring forth a more gender equal world. And yep, I've always believed that, not to let technology rule us. We leverage technology to our best and make the best use of it. And that's why the Global Summit.
Great. I'm sure we can see with the audience building up every moment, it's going to be a success. So, we have seen 8 years of growing up. The sapling has grown up, and it's I will not say a tree, but yes, it's a plant which is sheltering many, many women. 50,000 plus in women got impacted. It's huge. So, how do you envisage the journey ahead?
As you rightly said, Hina, we're still in the process. And I always say that, it's always WIP, work in progress, until finally it is RIP. So one has got to keep moving, one has got to keep growing. We're still, yes, a plant. We've evolved through the sapling part of it and the germination part of it. Now is the time for action. And one definitely envisages it to grow into that, the wish granting tree for women at work, where their support needs, their upskilling needs are granted through the platform of Corporate Diva. What I see from here ahead is, as I said, that, up until the pandemic, I personally was quite narrowed in my approach in terms of, let's say just a group of people or a couple of cities. But I'll tell you, I mean, a very amazing fact is that exactly 24 months ago, Corporate Diva was just 2 cities and entering into 2 more cities in India. And 24 months since, we have our presence in 12 countries. So there is still miles to travel, miles to go. But as long as we're in motion, as long as we're building every moment as we talk, we definitely are going to have a global connect of women coming together and cheering each other and being each other's champs.
Awesome, excellent, Deepika. It was nice conversating with you. And I think without further ado, as you all saw, that learnings taken from her own journey, her own experiences, which has moved her to set up this platform, which is totally passionate about women leadership and has held to this level today that we are talking to immaculate speakers and having 110 plus attendees on board right now. Let's move ahead towards our first section, the first panel. May I request, while it's important for us to hear our panel, it is also important for us to make sure that we hear to our attendees' opinion. May I request the CD Summit Tech Master to launch the first poll pertaining to the first panel. So request all the attendees to please take the poll. As per the latest survey of the KPMG Women Leadership Report, which had surveyed 750 executive women from major companies, it is said that 75% of executive women identified have experienced imposter syndrome at various points during their careers. 81% of the executive women surveyed believe that they put more pressure on themselves not to fail than men do. 47% of the executive women believe having a supportive performance manager is number one factor in combating imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is something there. And if we have the culture where women are empowered to redirect their fears and doubts and turn them the opportunities for growth, it is something which can be tackled. And we'll hear more about it from our esteemed panel who is coming forth, and the poll's results are here. So 10% of the women feel that yes, they have experienced self-doubt all the time, while 82% feel sometimes, which is a worrying number. And 8%, I'm proud of you folks that you have never felt it. And please build upon this caliber of yours. With that, allow me to bring forth the next panel. We have the expert navigator, Amrit Ahuja. Amrit Ahuja has been in the communication industry for over 25 years. I'm sorry for this glitch. Amrit Ahuja has been in communication industry for over 25 years in an in-house brand consultant at the Michael Susan Dell Foundation. Prior to this, she was communication director for Facebook India. Her area of expertise is spread across integrated communication, issue management, employee communication, brand reputation management, crisis communication, corporate reputation management, media relations, advocacy, corporate responsibility, consumer insights, public advocacy. Amrit has been on several boards and is passionate about mentoring upcoming women leaders. And you saw her video bite that she is all supportive of Corporate Diva platform. Welcome on board, Amrit. Put a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Amrit Ahuja. She would be holding this panel along with the next eminent guest, Aarti Rabikrishnan. Aarti is a founder and managing director of Prerna Advisory based in South Africa. Prerna Advisory focuses on neuroscience-based coaching and assessment for individuals, teams, and corporates, strategic business consulting to SMEs, and capital introduction to alternate funding sources. Over the course of an intensive 15-year corporate career in the investment industry, Aarti has led multiple successful initiatives spanning across equity research, talent management, capital raising, portfolio management transformation, and coaching across geographies and client segments in business. Her specific approach to relationship advancement has built and sustained inviolable networks of institutional investors globally. Aarti has focused her work predominantly in women empowerment and development, where using her coaching, strategies, sales, and finance skills, she helps women craft their personal and business brands holistically with confidence. She's a mentor on Cherie Blair Foundation for Women in Business and hosts the growing Inspire Your Life podcast, aimed at bringing uplifting stories of real people with implementable advice and lessons learned for listeners' benefit. And I did hear some of her podcast stories, and they are literally inspiring. Put your hands together from Aarti Ravikrishnan from South Africa. Another eminent speaker on this panel is Abel Vanemakok from Thailand. Abel has 15 years of experience, Hong Kong born, US raised, is a media talent with the ability to work across a wide range of platforms, including TV hosting, news presenting, emceeing for any type of function, motivational speaking, script writing, voiceover work, and presenter coaching in communications, confidence, and public speaking. Abel is the founder of Find Your Voice Asia Coaching, an international presenter, TEDx speaker, motivational speaker, and entrepreneur. She currently travels all around Asia to host conferences, openings, dinners, awards, and other large-scale events. Welcome on board, Abel. With that, I hand over the baton to you, Amrit. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Nina. I'm so thrilled this afternoon to have so many people watching us, and of course, my esteemed panelists, Aarti and Abel, two powerful Asian women in different parts of the world. Just for everybody who's watching, please tweet, use the hashtag Together We Lead, because this forum is about women leading together. So once again, I repeat, hashtag Together We Lead. And straight into that, I'm not going to waste any time. Aarti, what's your point of view on imposter syndrome? Is it for real? We saw 8% women said they don't face it. I wish I was one of those 8%, but I want to hear your point of view.
Amrit, thank you so much. And first of all, it's just a delight to be on the panel today. From my perspective, it is indeed real. And having experienced it myself firsthand, I can say so. So I'm definitely in the 82% on that. And the way it manifested for me was I almost felt as if I was going to be found out. I was a fraud, even though I felt I worked hard to get into that particular situation. So it manifested as me not feeling as if I was good enough. But I think, Amrit, it's important for us to break down the term imposter syndrome. So if you look at the word imposter, it means to feel excluded. It means to not belong. And then if you look at the term syndrome, then you consider it as a collection of symptoms that somehow points to some sort of a condition where you don't necessarily know if the cause is in place, or also understand where it's coming from. And, one of the things that I don't enjoy is the fact that we do call it a syndrome, because the fact that we term it a condition almost gives one the sense that it's clinical and it's permanent, which it absolutely is not. And I think we'll unpack that, both Abel and I, as we go through the session. So, Amrit, sorry?
Yeah, go ahead, Aarti.
I was just going to say, I think it'll be really useful for our audience and participants to understand how imposter syndrome actually manifests from a neurophysiological perspective. So if you don't mind, I'll actually work through an example just to give someone a sense of how that works. And I'll use an example from my own experience. So when I presented to my first investment committee, I had a report that I needed to present. I was very anxious because seated at the table with me was a full team of seniors, and I was the youngest one there. So my feelings were quite ambivalent. I was very mindful of the fact that I had all of these insights and experience and a very good work ethic. But because of my age and my comparative lack of experience, I was also quite intimidated. So I doubted myself to the point that I actually began to wonder if luck was playing a part. And there was this fear of being judged, of being mocked, of being found out, and possibly even having my insights mocked or judged, or even being attacked and confronted. So if I think back to that situation, there were these little voices in my head, which were basically the neurotransmitters, the chemicals in my brain, suddenly going onto high alert because I was starting to feel stress. And stress, as many people will know, is regulated by cortisol. So cortisol is what floods your body in order to help protect you because your brain feels, oh my goodness, something's going on here. Then there's other factors that come into play, like your serotonin as well, which controls your mood. There's dopamine, your sense of reward and satisfaction. So all of these that control your mood, your sort of ability to identify if you're going to do well, floods your particular body. And in my case, that's what happened. So that's where the doubts start to creep in. And you get all of these physical sensations like pain in your stomach, goosebumps on your arms, shivers running down your spine. This is how your body is reacting. And I'm just giving you a very simplified version of it. There's lots more that goes on and interacts, but it helps one to understand that there's things going on in our brain relating to memories and experiences, which I'll expand on later, that brings forth the idea that we're an imposter in a situation. And maybe let me stop there, Amrit, and we can get more information from Abel as well with her experience.
Yes, Abel, tell us. What do you think the imposter syndrome is for real, and your experiences?
Hello, Amrit. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to RT as well. And to answer your question, I do believe that it's real. And one thing that I want to emphasize is that there are many symptoms that people say are under the imposter syndrome. And it's very, very important to not identify all these symptoms that you've had and say, oh gosh, I have imposter syndrome. Because the reason I'm saying this is because I never felt like I was a fraud. And when I am placed into a situation, I never feel like I don't belong. But I can say that there were times from childhood and from perhaps cultural or societal expectations that led me to have periods or at times when I feel like I'm not good enough. Or there were times when I feel like, very nervous or anxious. So those are, I say, symptoms that are under potential symptoms of having imposter syndrome. But we know one of the most important thing, and I have to repeat it again, is that our brains tends to, our mind, our ego, you can call it, tends to find things to identify with. One of the things that I used to identify to myself is I'm a victim. I'm a victim of this, a victim of that. That was always the biggest thing with me. And I do not want the people who are watching to say, oh my gosh, I have imposter syndrome, and then you own it, and then you accept it, and then it becomes your identity. Just to give you a quick example, my friend who had cancer, this is her story, and it's a perfect example. The doctor told her, you have cancer. And then my friend, who is a coach also, and she's very, very adamant, she said, I do not have cancer. I am only temporarily experiencing cancer. And I think that is a really great way to change the perspective of not owning something, because you can always say, oh, I'm born poor, I'm born rich, I'm born with this culture, I'm born with that. And imposter syndrome is another thing that you can say that you own. And I please do not want to, I plead with all of you to not say that I have imposter syndrome, but you are temporarily experiencing symptoms that you feel an imposter and that you can overcome it, and you will.
That's wonderful, So I hear both of you say that it's somewhere wired in the brain and we are responsible for wiring it. Just a question, since we're talking about, together we lead. Do you think that men suffer from an imposter syndrome, or do they just get away with it?
I'll let Arti go first.
Sure, Abel. Look, I think there's definitely a higher gender bias when it comes to imposter syndrome, and Hina did a really lovely job of giving us some of the recent stats from KPMG on that way. But Amrit, I wouldn't say that men get away with it in any way. I think that there's a different set of circumstances when it comes to that, and I actually find that it may be a case where men may find it more difficult to admit it or even to internalize it, because we need to remember that there's also male biases that are present in our world, right? The perception that men need to have a certain level of strength, and there's only so much that they should be able to show. And then similarly, there's these expectations from women as well, that we are meant to be emotional and feeling oriented and possibly not as ruthless and power hungry as men, because that's very male dominated characteristic. So, where I think perhaps women do a little bit better is that we're a bit further ahead in the curve when it comes to speaking up about it, about finding communal ways to deal with it, those different support structures and ecosystems that Deepika mentioned early on.
Abel, what's your experience with men and the imposter syndrome?
That was very good, Arti. I really liked your answer. Yes, to be fair, men has their own issues that they are challenged with. But I do think that if you're talking about imposter syndrome, based on it depends on the culture also, of course, because sometimes I see that men in certain Asian cultures and like men in other Asian cultures, they could be different depending on what is the characteristic that says men are and that you can. And I think, for example, like in the US compared to like in Asia, and when I'm saying Asia, I'm saying in Thailand. I'm not saying Hong Kong or Singapore, because those are definitely more westernized Asian countries. But in the US, I would think that men will get away with not having imposter syndrome because they feel that they have the right to speak up or to have power, and that it is expected of them. Whereas women have a less chance even sometimes to speak. Let's say even in the US, even though US is a very independent and promoting speaking country, I still felt that I had less opportunities to speak when I was in the US because I was a woman, and most of the time the men are the one that are asked, okay, so what do you think of that? What do you think of that? And the woman tends to stay quiet. But on the other hand, and this also, like I said, links to culture as well. There are Thai men that I have coached here in Thailand who are afraid. They have limiting beliefs of themselves, maybe because of their the way that they were brought up, or the family culture even. So I do think that men get away more with it, but it doesn't mean that they are exempt from having imposter syndrome.
I hear you both say that it is definitely even cultural. So would it be right for me to say that the imposter syndrome is about upbringing? It is about cultural diversities. It is about family conditioning. I remember, like when I was a little girl, my mom always told me, you know what? You're no less than boys. You're no less than men. You're not going to be less than men. You have to be an equal. And so many times when I'm in a situation where I can be stuck with the imposter syndrome, I hear my mom's words ringing in my ears. And I somewhere identify with both of you, because men do speak up, whereas we women, because of being culturally brought in a certain way, also think it's polite to let somebody else go first. And that's where in different cultures, and I've worked in different parts of the world, I've seen whether it's Asian men or women, they kind of stay quiet. But just on that, and I'm seeing a lot of audience questions also coming up on that. You both have achieved so much, you coach so much. How about some tips for how can you overcome the syndrome, the imposter syndrome? Arti, I've heard a podcast where you gave some really wonderful tips. I'd love you to talk about some of those and also add on some more so that we understand, how we can really conquer this little bee that sits in our head all the time, and how do we just let it free?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there's so much that we can talk about. And in fact, I know that Deepika has mentioned a couple of things as well, but let's work through some tips, because this is quite topical for our listeners. And like you said, in that blog post on my Inspire Your Life podcast, as well as on my website, the audience and listeners are more than welcome to go and have a look at that. But I think the most important thing we need to start with is knowing you. So embracing that self-awareness about your habits and of course your mindset as well. And once you get to that level of awareness, for me, the next step is then being curious. And being curious means asking the why behind, well, why is this habit in place? And why is this mindset in place? Where is it coming from? Because that level of curiosity about yourself will actually, it'll give you some answers, but most likely it's going to give you a lot more questions that you need to answer. And from there, that's where I think we can then start to reach out to our ecosystem of support that Deepika has mentioned and we've mentioned now earlier as well. It takes time for us to understand and to process why and where and what is actually happening with us. So this ecosystem that I'm talking about will be people like a coach, an advisor, a mentor, perhaps even a best friend, your parents, people you admire, like your teachers or professors, your colleagues, even your boss, right? And these are just some examples, but each person in this ecosystem is going to offer you a very different dimension towards your self-awareness. And it's going to range from positive to neutral to even very critical. I would say to our participants, we must learn to embrace all of that and embrace it and work with a professional so that you can actually unpack that in a lot more detail. And I know when people hear the words, look at a professional, they start to think, oh, is this therapy? Is that where we're going with this? That's not what I'm talking about. Therapy is very clinical. Therapy is dependent on the level of trauma that you've experienced. And it could be very valid. It could be very necessary. But I guess what I'm talking about here is to help us understand what are those historical contexts that have actually shaped us to be where we are now in our present, and using that to determine and create a future outcome that's both healthy, productive, and successful for us. I think the last bit, Amrit, before I hand over to you, is to say that the final part of the process to be able to uplift somebody out of this is to be able to create some really strong anchors. And these are things that will instigate you to action. So, if I quickly share an example with you, not too long ago, I went through 2 retrenchment processes and they were fairly back to back. Now, anyone who knows going through retrenchment, the kind of toll it takes on you mentally, from a confidence perspective, morale, and if that isn't the biggest symbol of being an imposter, I don't know what is, right? So there's so many things that go on. But in that time, I knew I had to make some sort of a decision about what my next route was, where was I going to go, what was I going to do? And the anchor that I chose to use was actually my son, because I wanted to present to him a mom who was whole, purposeful, and well-resourced. And in that moment when I was going through that, I knew that that was not me. So that anchor of wanting to be more and to do more, using my son as that anchor, was what actually helped me to start Prerna Advisory. And 2 years later, to be sitting here with all of you talking about imposter syndrome. So yeah, let me leave it at that, Amrit, and we'll carry on from there.
That's such an amazing journey that you've covered, Aarti. And I can just tell everybody that if you listen to some of the podcasts that Aarti has done, go on to Prerna Advisory, you will really find a purpose in life. Whenever I'm feeling down and out, I just go listen to one of her podcasts, because she brings the most amazing guests, and you kind of immediately just bond with them. Great, Abel. Talk to us about your journey. You and I chatted, and you also have been through this syndrome. And tell us, how did you overcome it? Because I think that's the biggest thing that everybody's looking at from a takeaway from this, that how do they overcome an imposter syndrome?
Thank you. I can tell you that I have had feelings of being not good enough because mainly of my childhood. I had to, immigrate to the US from Hong Kong when I was 10. And between the age of 10 and 13, I really couldn't speak good English. for whatever reason, because I was really shy, because I was going through a lot of changes, having to adapt to a new environment and a new culture, and trying to learn the language. And of course, I also have dealt with a lot of racism, judgments, stereotyping, labeling. I mean, I experienced all of that. And I'm not saying that I'm blaming anybody anymore, but that was just the experience that I had back in the US, back in 1991 in Ohio. And those were the times that was very, very vulnerable, or where I was trying to learn about who I was at the age of 10 and 13. And those were the times when I felt like I was not good enough. And as an adult, once in a while, I would go back to those moments when I feel like I was a little girl and I would feel like I'm not good enough. So when people feel, even if you don't have imposter syndrome or you never felt like a fraud, I definitely have a lot of the symptoms that you can say are under imposter syndrome. And the way that I went about it is, once in a while, usually it happens when I'm in the shower, okay? I would go into the shower and I would find myself, I would hear myself saying something negative about something in the past that already happened that I have no control over. And over months and sometimes years, depending on what situation it is, that I felt somebody had wronged me because I had a victim mentality. It was so easy for me to go back and say, I'm a victim, I can't do this, I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. That is a mentality that I have, like a voice in my head, right? And that doesn't happen all the time, because if that happens all the time, I would not be where I'm at today. But once in a while, I would do that and I would hear myself say that. So the first thing I would like to say as a tip is, you need to be aware that you have certain mentality or certain things where you think that, thoughts that is not beneficial for you. And second, you need to want to not have those types of thoughts anymore, because thoughts of the past, thoughts of identity, of being a victim, or whatever negative identity that you have attached yourself to that does not help your growth, you do not need them anymore. Maybe I needed them when I was a little girl, but I'm no longer a little girl. And it's so easy for our mind, which I say our ego, to go back to what is familiar, to go back to what it is that we felt, kind of like, I'm a victim. Nothing can save me. I'll just kind of go hide in the corner and be invisible, and then I'll be fine. But I cannot be like that anymore as an adult. I have my own family. I have my own children, just like Artie. I need to be a good role model for my children. I cannot have, sometimes I would say like crazy spells where I feel like I am not good enough for whatever reason. It's because I go back to my childhood, and those are the weak moments that you sometimes feel that you have. And those are the moments that you have to tell yourself, okay, I don't want to think like that anymore. How can I help myself? And just like what Artie said, if you're mindful of certain mentality or thoughts that you have that repeats in your head, and you want to get rid of them or to release them from your mind, you need to want change, because you need to have the intention to want change. And then, because that would be step 3. And step 4, I would suggest you to find a coach. Find somebody who can mirror you, that can help you through whatever techniques that they use to help you. So those are like the 4 quick steps that I would say to conquer your own. So the first one is to be aware. Second is to decide that you want to change. Third is to be mindful that you have these particular thoughts that you no longer want for your present life. And fourth is to get somebody like a coach to help you. That's what I did anyways.
Thank you, Abel. And I think you help so many people find voice, because your company is also called Find Your Voice. And I think it's all about, just what I hear both of you say, is it's all in the head. Get rid of all the negative thoughts and just find your voice. So just on that, I'm going to just steer the conversation a little bit. Aarti, since you work with so many companies, you coach so many people, you're on the board of various kind of forums. What do you think is that corporates need to do to help employees get over the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, a very, very important question, Amrit. And, I know a lot of the time we talk about culture, all right, a corporate culture that needs to include this or build this in. And I typically find that culture is very fluid. As much as companies have a stated culture based around their values, they actually tend to be fairly aspirational because the actual culture differs across a wide spectrum from being in line with what they'd like it to be to also being completely toxic. Now what I'm talking about is actually the subcultures that exist within companies, and these are actually unaccounted for most of the time. So these are things that persist at team level, roll up to business level, division, cluster, you name it, whatever the hierarchy could be. So there's that disconnect, and in my mind, if you want to be able to bring about the idea that we can eradicate or at least minimize and reduce imposter syndrome feelings with women, men, whatever within the workplace, you need to start at a bottom up process. So, at a team level, one of the things that we can ask ourselves within the team is, well, what are we doing at a team level to enable women to embrace their strengths? And I'm going to possibly highlight three very generalized strengths here, just to kind of make the point of how it could be used to full advantage. And I'll try and give an example as well. So, the first strength that I think comes to mind for me is women actually know how to lead, because we're very good at growing things, nurturing, right? And in order to nurture and to grow, it means we have to make decisions to enable that. So businesses are in the same sort of, they say also want to scale up. They also want to grow. So guess what? Bring in more women into your brainstorming sessions, into the ideas part, as well as the execution part. It's quite natural for us to feel as if that we can deliver in those sort of spheres. The second one that I would possibly put forward is we typically find it easier to take a multi-stakeholder view, because we not only work and teach, but we also support at a communal level. So in the workplace, at team level, if there's some way to develop fostering these collaborations with different stakeholders at the team or business unit level, you're typically going to find that there's going to be a higher success rate. And maybe the third one, just to highlight, would be, I certainly find this, that women are actually very naturally risk aware, mainly because we work out trade-offs quite easily in terms of cost benefit and all of those things. We tend to do it mentally, right? So I would say, we need to ensure that team level, business unit level, wherever it is, that we're actually taking a temperature check with our people in those teams, with our women, to see what's missing and bring in those perspectives of what could be included. And like I said, you can use this at team level, exec level, board level, whatever level you want to do it. But let this tactical process pervade through your organization, because the more women are called upon to participate, the less out of place they feel, and also the more confident they feel. And then I did see a little comment pop up in the chat box about recognition and visibility. And I think let me just quickly address that as part of my answer. Not everyone knows how to deal with being visible, even though you want to be recognized for your effort and your ideas. So to my mind, we need to help our women become more comfortable with this by ensuring there's a culture of inclusion and upliftment. So I mentioned those hierarchies that remain. You typically have a team leader, a line manager, a unit head, and on and on and on it goes. And there's just too many layers sometimes that blocks the visibility and also the quality of your talented women professionals in the workplace. So, for me, the solution is very simple. Dismantle the hierarchy with visibility exercises that actually showcase your internal competence of your women and your staff. And I'll give you a very great example. My first role within one of the large 4 banks in South Africa, excuse me, this particular team would have a monthly catch-up at business unit level, where it would showcase people in the team that were doing inspiring work. People would get up and present. We would even have breakfast together. We'd applaud each other. We'd give each other feedback. And what was really great was other stakeholders were invited as well. So senior managers, others from marketing teams, whatever the case may be, they all made the time to attend. And that really upped the visibility within the organization. So I guess, Amrit, what I'm saying is there's absolutely no need for us to complicate matters in organizations to help women defeat imposter syndrome. There's enough ideas to make it happen. And really, it comes down to the will of the organization. And also for those of us who are feeling a little bit brave, where we can push the envelope a little bit to aid in the agenda moving along. Let me pause there.
Yeah, I think, Aarti, it all boils down to that together we lead. And in organizations, we all need to get together and, help conquer the imposter syndrome. I'd love to hear some of the examples, Abel, that you would want to share with us from your coaching sessions as to what you've seen organizations do to help employees get over the imposter syndrome.
I have seen organizations do a lot of confidence building, team building, but not in particular to imposter syndrome. One of the things that I have maybe more experience in is my background, which is half in the West, in the US, and then half of it is in Asia. Of course, my first 10 years is in Hong Kong, and I was just a kid at the time. But in Thailand, also the culture of Asian countries is still quite similar. And I can tell you that, to answer your question and the question from the chat, is that it's very important to give everyone a chance to build their confidence and to show them that no matter your gender, who you are, what's your background, you have something to give. It's similar to what Aarti said. I mean, we are all born for a reason. You are born for a reason and you have a purpose. And you are at wherever place that you're at for a reason. So don't ever question, why am I here? Oh, maybe I don't belong. It's because you are questioning your own present. You are present in that moment. So why would you even ask yourself that you don't belong? So you have to realize that those are the thoughts that is, not necessary. And of course, you do have to have some courage because I can give you an example is that when I studied abroad in Japan for 1 year, after this 1 year, I went back to the US and I was at the age of about 21. And the professor asked a question in a huge hall and I knew the answer. But you know what? After that 1 year in Japan, I was conditioned and I was so scared because I would never have been this scared before I went to Japan. And it's because the culture back then in Japan is that women stay quiet. You do certain things and you do not do certain things. You do not speak up. And that was something that I definitely felt was a conditioning of the 1 year that I was at in Japan, in that culture. And I can say that living in Thailand, I can see a lot of females and even male, like I said, in Thailand, who do not speak because they feel like, oh, even if I speak, it's not of importance. Maybe my level is too low, my title is too low, I shouldn't speak. And the leaders of these organizations, the general managers, the CEOs, they definitely need to give the opportunity to hear the voices of everyone and give everyone a chance to speak. Maybe ask them, what is it that you would like for us to help you as an organization? So ask them, as a higher level executive, ask your lower level staff. And I don't mean lower meaning that they're less than you, but that's just a choice of word. People of a different level that you guide. You are the one who have the responsibility to give more chances to others to speak. When you are, for example, if you're a GM, you are expected to speak, you are expected to hold meetings. But do you give out the energy that doesn't allow other people to speak when you're speaking? Do you give out that opportunity for people to want to feel comfortable to speak? Because a lot of times it depends on the culture, of how the leaders give out the energy of what is welcomed and what is not welcomed. So it's definitely very, very important for companies and organizations to open this door to raise up the level of confidence and potential imposter syndrome culture that they are boiling up within their own organizations themselves.
That's very helpful, Abel. And there was a question saying that, a lot of time people don't get acknowledged for the good work that they do. And that leads to a much deeper imposter syndrome. I think I would just answer that and I'd lean on both of you to tell me if I'm right, that find your voice, have a conversation, establish dialogues within your teams in an organization if you're feeling that way, because you're responsible for your growth, for your mindset, as Aarti and Abel have really, shared with us. And uh, it's a journey. I don't think any of us overcome imposter syndrome in overnight. It's a journey that we all have to take and take external help if need be. If not, there's enough and more that's available online. Join a community, just like this corporate diva community. All of us are able to reach out to each other and have a conversation of how can I, without being judgmental. There will be somebody to help you. So I think with that, Hina, we're time up. Or do we have any time for more questions, Hina, or should we just pass on to the next session?
Certainly, Amrit. We have some more time for the questions if you would like to take with Abel and Aarti. Our audience have posted in.
Okay, I'm going to just go on to the chat and see what are some of the other questions that are coming out. Yeah, here's an interesting question from Yuki. She's saying, Abel called out the need to build a culture of letting team members speak. However, in reality, people are not so welcoming due to competition. So what's your experience of building the balance? And I think this is just Yuki is talking about in a corporate setup. So both Aarti, Abel, any of you could take that about talking about building a balance in a corporate culture.
Abel, happy for you to start with that.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Yukti, for this question. I think you are absolutely right. A lot of times, due to fear, we create resistance for other people. And, a lot of times, this is something that my dad taught me. You have to speak through your action. It's sometimes not always through words. You lead by example. Even if you are at middle or lower level, you don't always have to voice out. Of course, you can voice out, when you feel like, okay, I've had enough. When I speak, nobody listens. Maybe you have to go talk to somebody that you trust in the organization and voice out your concern one-on-one to somebody that you trust and to initiate that. But you also have to have the patience, because a lot of times we have impatience with others. We have impatience with ourselves, because most of the time when we want something, we want it now. We feel restricted because we cannot say what we want to say now. But if you continue to feel this urge within you that you need to voice your opinion, you have to do it through different aspects, different ways. Sometimes it's through voicing. Sometimes it's through leadership. Sometimes it's through empowering people that are next to you or lower than you. Sometimes it's just through action as a competent person that you can be. Do the best that you can. And sometimes it's not just about talking, because leaders, bosses, CEOs, they can always see if you are somebody that they should listen to, that you are somebody that they should trust. And that takes time, and that takes action over time to prove that people should listen to what you have to say. And that's something that I learned personally when I work in corporations and organizations. And this is also something I learned from my dad as well. So yes, it's not easy to build that balance. And maybe you are already balancing it by showing up, by giving an action, by speaking up, or being a good example. That's already an action in work, action at work.
Aarti, any experiences that you want to share from the corporate setup?
Yeah, no, I mean, thanks to Yukti for that that question. And I think I probably wanted to just quickly address the competition part of it that she spoke of, because you're quite right. At team level, there is high levels of competition. No, not co-opetition, which is what it should be. And I mean, I worked in a very cutthroat sales team where it was very individualistic. As much as they called us a sales team, at the end of the day, it was based on what each person had to deliver. So it became cutthroat and ruthless, which is detrimental to anything that you're trying to build to from a team culture, right? And I think what learning I could take out from that, and what I obviously put forward to people that I coach and teams that I coach, is you need to look at all of the supporting systems and structures in place that, negate what you're trying to do at a team level collaboration perspective. And this could be simple things like looking at your KPIs. a lot of the time they're very singular sort of focus. It's about the individual. There's very little team components around collaboration built in there. Now, can you imagine if there was a higher weighting of that would then compel people to actually work together to get to the goal, which quite frankly, I completely believe in, because everyone has a unique strength and a particular development area. And when you do go and hunt in a pack, you are most likely to be successful than hunting on your own. And bringing in different people at different stages actually helps you to conquer and land and do it exactly what it is you need to do. So it is a little bit about that braveness that we were talking about, to be able to ask for it. And I know there's fear around that, and there's a lot of issues that we could dive around fear about it. But if we could start with some of the low-hanging fruit to bring this awareness around, well, actually, you want a team to work together, but you've got all of these dismantling, inhibiting factors. Let's actually try and work through some of those to ensure we can get the team moving ahead, not just on an individualistic basis.
Another question that we have is that how can women empower ourselves in leadership and diversity in 2020? And, Hina threw up some facts for us. And also what I've been reading during the pandemic, more women lost jobs than men. More women got less raises than men. So really, I think this audience is saying that how do really women empower themselves so that they're not at the attacking end with not only the imposter syndrome but even some of these things. So any tips from both of you would be great for us to close this discussion.
Shall I go?
Go ahead, Arti.
Okay, all right. So you're quite right. From our participant, it's a very difficult time across the globe, right? And I mean, I'll just work through my own personal experience. My business is 2 years old, and the first year was things were happening, things were going according to what I thought was my plan, and come 2020 and the pandemic happens, and then things start to dry up. And, I thought to myself, well, as much as business has changed and possibly isn't coming my way, what can I do as a woman to ensure that I don't feel that I am losing confidence or I am backing down and all of those things? So I actually took the effort to make a list. Actually, I'm quite organized that way. Made a list of what are my strengths and what are the things that I'm good at, and what are the things that I had wished I could be doing when I was busy in the year before. And using that as a bit of a visual guide helped me understand, all right, these are the strengths that I want to continue to enhance and embellish so that when things become available and ready again, I'm prepared. And it's also that great confidence booster for ourselves. So that looked like things like courses, joining discussion groups, reading a lot more, doing a couple of certified type courses as well, things that I know I would enjoy, the education element. Then on the development side, there were things like, I knew, for example, that, and I'll share this with the participants, I was very shy. So for me, I had to push myself to actually launch a podcast, to put my voice heard, make it heard out there. And another way that I'm doing it is speaking on this engagement. So I'm pushing myself to develop, learn, and grow. So these are things happening in real time. And as you do it, the more empowered, the more confident you feel. And at the same time, you realize, actually, it wasn't that difficult to do it all. It was just that mindset that was blocking you from doing it. So, I would say to everyone, take that leap. Empowerment is not this lofty goal that, you can't attain. Incremental steps will help you improve so that you don't feel as if you're stagnating. So, just take that little step forward and keep inching forward that way. It'll help build you up.
I'm going to share a leap story also after Abel is done. And you're absolutely right. We all just need to take that leap. Tell us, Abel, about your experience.
To be honest, I do not have too many issues getting myself to do things. I have always been very driven. So you have good things that happen to you when you're a child, and then you have bad things that happen to you when you're a child. So the good thing that happened to me when I was a child is I was always pushed to work. I was always an action-oriented person. So having a drive was never an issue for me. And during the pandemic, even though I haven't worked for somebody for a long, long time, and I have been working for myself for a long time as a presenter, and then recently, expanding into coaching, is that I started, similar to Arti, I started a podcast, not a podcast, excuse me, a video series or video blog. And at that time, I connected myself to meet different people. And when you're meeting people, you're asking them for advices and they're teaching you things. And to go back to why I started the video blog is that my heart felt that I wanted to do that. It was something, I always was somebody who followed my heart. My mind will have to come second. If my heart said, this is right, I listen to my heart because my heart is always right. So when your heart tells you, you know what, yes, maybe I was, released, or you can say fired from my job, see it as an opportunity to do something that you have never had a chance to do, something that you love. Because when you love something, you put effort into something that you love, you can expand and grow so much quicker than what you were doing before. So I always say to everyone, think of everything as an opportunity, because everything is an opportunity and there are no restrictions, because you are meant to be your own creator of your life. And empowering yourself is to have that mindset and have that drive. And the drive, you have to climb over this, I call it the bridge of fear. We all have fear always with us. And you have to overcome your fear by taking action to do something that will allow you to feel more confident in your ability to overcome that. And then when you have tried, even though you, in your mind, maybe you have failed, but you tried. So that is empowerment for yourself. That is confidence building in yourself. And do not let that negative talk in your head that says, oh, you're not that good, or oh, blah, 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 blah. Do not allow that side of you to control where you want to go in life, because everyone wants to succeed. Everyone wants to be, empowering. Everyone wants to have influence. And remember, you are meant to be a creator. So go and create. Don't wait.
So much. I'm going to wrap up with that. And it was lovely having both of you ladies. And over to you, Hina. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, lovely ladies. That was a power-packed panel with the flawless, unsoiled, and straight from the heart advice to our attendees. So, dear audience, the good news is that we can overcome the imposter syndrome. 72% of the executive women also say that advice of the mentor and trusted advisor when doubting your own abilities, take on new roles. Please fall back to your advisors and mentors because they are there for you. Request you all to please take this second poll for this particular panel, and please make sure to feed your mind. You are not an imposter. You are an original and unique persona, and stay that way. So as long as we have leaders and organizations that successfully build supportive environments and foster a sense of belonging, I'm sure the women can confidently grow and thrive in ever challenging and competitive world. So I encourage and urge all the attendees to please take the post panel while we are gearing up for our second panel about overcoming biases, preferences, and stereotypes. So we spoke enough about imposter. It's important to break the biases and prejudices what we build around ourselves. Through a recent survey in Glassdoor and Deloitte, it was found that 42% of the women experience gender discrimination. And here we are out with the results. Yes, 91% of the audience feels that this panel was successful, and my gratitude felt thanks to each and every panelist. With that, let's move to our next panel, wherein we have, as I mentioned, 42% of the women experience gender discrimination at work. And 5 of the 14 top barrier women face in workplace are related to discrimination and gender bias. And to know more about it all, let me call upon stage our expert navigator, Dola Haldar. Dola Haldar is a passionate marketer, innovation expert, B-School mentor, and a D&I ally. She was titled Corporate Diva 2019 by the How Forum, handpicked as PepsiCo's future leader for an exclusive one-on-one interaction with the charismatic CEO Indra Nooyi. Dola has impacted 2 lakhs plus individuals by her consistent interaction with budding professionals and student communities by means of guest lectures and online modules, round the clock digital mentorship over LinkedIn, which is her way to give back to society. Managing cross-country, cross-cultural, cross-functional teams, leading complex projects, delivering consumer speak, reading into insights, and improvising brand financials and building consumer love are her areas of knack and passion. She represents PepsiCo's D&I Council and has set up PepsiCo India's first childcare policy and system, launched Mentor for Magic, a holistic leadership and self-development program for PepsiCo's India's women talents. So welcome Dola Haldar from India. Meanwhile, I request you all to please take the second poll pertaining to this panel to help the audience understand better. Joining Dola, we have Nino Mikava from Georgia. Nino is a healthcare and management specialist, researcher, and lecturer with over 17 years of experience in management, insurance, and healthcare sectors. Throughout her career, Nino has served senior level positions in Georgia's biggest insurance companies and chains of clinics. Actively pursuing her career in academia, Nino is an assistant professor affiliated in Business and Technology University BTU. The passion for academia accords her path as an invited lecturer, expert, and thesis supervisor in several universities in Georgia. Nino is a medical doctor, has completed global health course in Tromsø University, Norway, and additionally holds master's degree in business administration and PhD in public health. Embracing the core values of professional development, innovation, integrity, and personal growth, Nino is actively participating in various workshops and conferences abroad. She is Mashaf program alumni. In the role of principal researcher, Nino has worked on several research projects. She has published several articles in scientific journals. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Nino from Georgia. Last but not the least, we do have esteemed Funda Gusar from Turkey on this panel. Funda is a Turkish senior leader qualified in business operations in healthcare with sound experience in several multinational companies, mastering at strategy, business startup, organizational transform, financial and P&L management. Funda has solid track record through various business cycles and strategic mandates from business launch and growth to efficiently gains and turned around. Leading volatility, fast decision making and customer focus are her DNA. After a solid CFO background in this big pharma, she transferred to journal management via the design of Mylan Turkish affiliate, almost zero based as country manager and managing director. Besides, in conjunction with the patient needs, she was the country manager of Iran, a third-party business between 2016 to 18. Funda was rewarded among the top 50 female CEOs at 2018-2020 in Turkey by the Economist Journal. Excellent panel we have, and here we have the results also. How many of you have felt the stereotypes? Sometimes, which is 82%. With that, I'll hand over the baton to Dola. Over to you.
I don't know, it is hung completely. I can't take calls. I'm not able to do anything. If I drop it, if I mistake it now, I will just.
Thank you so much, Hina, and a very, very warm welcome to each and every audience and participant out there joining us from different parts of the country and different parts of the globe. I feel extremely privileged to be able to navigate this panel in particular, primarily because when it comes to biases, more so unconscious preferences and stereotypes, I don't think this topic has been any more relevant and any more potent than today's time. Let me give you a background of
what the United Nations latest report on gender bias said, and I'm going to build over what Hina left us with. That report specifically says that 90% of the men globally who participated in that survey confirmed they have participated or perpetrated some form of gender bias against women. Even more shocking, 84% of the women participating in the survey confirmed that they have perpetrated gender bias against other women. With that as the background, I'm going to navigate to Nino and Funda and understand more from them as to, do we think that gender bias, more so unconscious, is something that happens when you're growing up in your career? Or is it something that comes in only much later and at much senior positions? Do you think it's agnostic of the age and stage in the career we are at? We'd love to hear more from your personal experiences. Do you want to go ahead first, and then Funda, I'm going to come back to you on that.
Yes, thank you, Dola. And first of all, thank you for this opportunity and for bringing up such an important issue. And I truly appreciate what you do to empower women and to promote women leadership. In my opinion, it relates more to experience than with age. Yes, the way the gender bias impacted my career has changed with an experience. And when I'm speaking about experience, I mean lessons learned from failures and knowledge and wisdom gained from these years, and not the amount of years itself. We all know that it is possible to have many years experience and not gain anything and not learn anything. So as I became more experienced throughout my career, my confidence increased. And confidence is a key word in this context. Just to be yourself, but the most confident version of yourself. This is true for every individual, I believe, despite of the gender. But in case of women, I think still it's more important. When a woman perceives herself as good enough, is open to challenges, accepts failures, it is challenging to manage this competence likability trade-off between being respected and being liked. And the time and energy spent on managing these perceptions can ultimately be self-defeating. Overinvestment in one's image diminishes the emotional and motivational resources available just for larger purposes. And looking back retrospectively to my career path, I can recall how much energy I have lost on this. People who focus on how others perceive them are less clear about their goals, less open to learning from failure, and less capable of self-regulation. You just have to know your skill sets and be comfortable what you bring to the table, and the best version of yourself, not someone else's version of you. That's not that easy to do. That's difficult to do. That's why I just emphasized experience. That's difficult to do, but especially when you strive to climb up the ladder in your career. But it comes with knowing yourself and knowing what you bring to the table and have confidence as a leader. That includes also saying no. Women often take on more in an effort to be seen by people on the executive team, but then end up overloaded. And I can remember myself just working twice as hard as maybe my male colleagues, just to prove that you are worth to be sitting at this table. And we take on more than our fair share. We try to do everything. That's how I drove myself to burnout. And then all of a sudden, just everything lost the meaning. So thinking about not just the way that people view us, but the way in which we view ourselves is really important. And confidence is important for others as well, for followers. People have a tendency to associate confidence with competence. And if you are not self-confident, others are not admiring what you do. So women need to do a better job of declaring themselves and speaking and acting confidently. So that's my opinion on this topic.
Thank you so much for that, Nino. And what I'm picking up from you before I move on to Funda is confidence and ability to say no. And thank you for sharing some of those personal experiences of how you had to work double up just to prove yourself. Funda, back to you. Do share with us, how has your journey been and your experience been rising up the ladder in terms of unconscious biases and stereotypes around you?
Thank you, Dola. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. It is really a big pleasure to be here in that platform worldwide. So from now on, I'm feeling much more strong, much more, reachable to a global platform, each and everything. So together we are more strong, and let's again, as the main idea, together let's we lead. I would like to say as a start. Dola, I think I'm also agreeing with Nino, and more maybe I can add that this is kind of a transformational process, and it becomes more visible when you are getting more visible. And maybe this is, as Nino states, that this is getting more having your bigger responsibilities, more presence on the cases, on the functions, and becoming again more visible and visible each and every day. So I got a start to my professional life early in the 90s. And even I was thinking while Abel and Arti was speaking, that even those days it was hard to even think about that. What is a bias? What is there any gender differences and each and everything? Because it was much more something like normalized things. So we were all expecting these things as a part of our somehow daily lives. So even maybe I myself was not acknowledged that there is a kind of a gender bias I'm having in, or there is such kind of a topic that we have to effort for and work on it, and maybe stand up and etc. So I think at least we had some development throughout all these years. We are talking about almost a 30-year. Yes, still too much to go, I do believe. I wish we would be in a very much better position. And I wish there would no more any women days or no more topics like gender bias or gender specific discussion panels. Then this will be a world that really gender bias free. But we are really talking about kind of an utopia things. But of course, we never would like to get rid of affording for it more and more each and every day. As I told, this is a transformational process. I think I had it quite a couple of times under some headings. Like I was a couple of times under a position to prove myself again and again, despite I had a track record in my career. For example, not only myself, but also my colleagues, women colleagues, should have to work twice as hard to get half as far with the men colleagues. Or if I named under a double bind, parenthesis, either to be liked or respected kind of, and whenever it is very normal or labeled or defined a man as an assertive, but I have been called as overly aggressive for many times, while I was thinking only that I am taking a leadership role there, and it was my responsibility to state loudly or to work for loudly to present well all my responsibilities. Or I have a teen boy, 17 years old. So I had another phase throughout all these 30 years, a maternal role, for example, when I had Bora and afterwards, and just before before I gave a birth to him. Of course, I always felt, nobody told it to me directly, but I always felt to put much more efforts as ever to prove that this maternity will never affect me at all, which is in general not a correct thing, and which is not possible, because this is also part of your life, and it's a big change. of your life. Of course, it will affect your life, affect your, daily life, affect your, taking care of things. But this doesn't mean that you are weaker anymore or losing anything, or you are less effective than any time that you are, because at the end of the day, what I am believing, all these things, leadership, to be successful in any definitions, or to present well all your responsibilities, is directly linked with the personality. It is really, from myself, a gender free thing. So whether you are a leader or not, maybe you can learn how to be a manager, but if you are having a leader character, even you are male or female, it's independent. So you are becoming a leader anymore, so on and so forth. So again, this is also not specific to an issue between men and women, but also women to women sometimes, because somehow maybe we are finding ourselves to compete each other, other than to collaborate each other, to be presented ourselves well enough. And of course, we are maybe developing ourselves to be the number one, to step up and to take the deserved places based on our efforts. So I think, again, this is a transformational things to manage.
Thank you so much for your response, Funda. And one common thread that I could pick from both Nino and you was the fact that at some point in time in our careers, each one of us, more so as women, have had to work double up than men, have had to be more assertive, have had to probably make far more sacrifices just to be accepted in that larger circle of professional network. And I completely relate to when 89% of the audiences in today's group have just confirmed by our poll that they've been directly, indirectly a part of some form of stereotype. Now, one very obvious and one very easy solution to that is for a woman to turn alpha male, for a woman to almost, exactly to what Nino said, work double up, work 16 hours shift, just to cover up for the fact that someone else is not as confident just because of the fact that you're a woman. What do you have to say about that? Nino, I'm going to move first to you. What do you feel about this whole issue of being pseudo males and being alpha females to be as successful as the other male counterparts in the network?
Thank you. Excellent question. First of all, I would like just to add, fully agree with Funda, what she said. And I would add only one comment, that I have 5 kids and I did not use maternity leave fully. I was working while I was on maternity leave, just from home. So that's why I mentioned saying no is an important skill that women need to learn. So that just to echo Funda and one more remark. And oh yes, absolutely, this is a very important topic what you just mentioned. And I remember several years ago when I read Harvard Business Review article, which had this headline that successful women behave like men. And it struck me. I realized that it was true in my case. Even one of my family members have told me once that I was behaving like a man. Then I started to think about my female leader colleagues, and I realized that it was so true. And it was the same issue in their cases as well. And it damages personal life, family relationships. It's like a vicious cycle. So in most cultures, masculinity and leadership are closely linked, since the ideal leader, like the ideal man, is decisive, assertive, and independent. So in contrast, women are expected to be nice, caretaking, and unselfish. The mismatch between conventionally feminine qualities and the qualities thought necessary for leadership puts female leaders in a double bind again. Women in positions of authority who enact conventionally feminine style may be liked but are not respected. They're deemed too emotional to make tough decisions and too soft to be strong leaders. And I remember in one company where I was the only woman in the board of directors, my male colleagues were telling me that at times I was too empathetic and compassionate, and they had this joke calling me auntie of the employees. So a common misconception, I think, is that women in or aspiring to positions of power in male-dominated environments should look like or behave like men. In particular, they should behave like what they perceive to be an alpha male. However, to come across as competent and authoritative, there is no need for women to look like one of the boys. Who take on leadership roles in academia and business, I think, should resist the urge to adopt these masculine traits, such as aggression, to get results, and instead they should use their emotional intelligence. Especially in this era of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, and in the middle of this fourth industrial revolution, there is a changing perception of leadership and trend towards servant type leadership, where leaders should be empathetic, compassionate, caring, supportive, just to cultivate this creativity in their employees. So this is very close to women, since women are more compassionate and more sensitive, as the body of evidence demonstrates. And successful senior women should be demanding and caring. For example, setting high standards while also providing support to achieve those standards. They should be authoritative and participative, showing that they are in charge while also encouraging others to have a voice. It may sound something like difficult to achieve, but again, I believe it comes with personal growth, with increasing emotional intelligence, and with acquiring more experience and more expertise. So that's my opinion.
Thank you for that, Nino. Very interestingly and very aptly, what you talk about is women should and need to bring forth their strengths. If it's compassion, then it should never be sidelined with being looked at as the alpha male just to be, better succeeding at the work that you're doing. Puna, I'm going to come back to you with the same question. In your experience, have you come across the prevalence of being alpha males? And in your opinion, what should one do as a woman leader to still make her mark, but not leave behind the traits that she most loves for herself?
Perfect. So I'm still having this situation, very honestly speaking. And Nino, as they are calling you auntie, they are calling me tough. So in general, other than result oriented or action oriented. But whenever I'm challenging a situation, because I need to challenge, because again I'm a leader, I am representing some responsibilities. And one of my managers was telling me that we are getting half of our salaries for suffering. So while you are suffering that much in your life, of course, it is your right, and it is needed to be tough in many decisions or in many processes. So the business itself is tough, and I never heard that any of my male colleagues have got such kind of a comment, but I'm usually getting it. But you are tough. Yes, I am tough because it's need to be tough. So I think this is more likely coming from the learned or born. Unfortunately, even today, 2021, we are proceeding, but still there are settled down traditionally feminine roles, even transformed in the workplaces, in the work life, still unconsciously in many times, but consciously sometimes, which I do believe that I was quite lucky because I was part of the companies more focused on these topics and more sensitive on these topics and efforts to overcome it. Yet this doesn't prevent me to feel the same expectations from myself, like the mom side, always restrained, endlessly supportive, sometimes picking up extra support, extra services to help others, or to act like a princess, aligning with others, but not that much challenge the others at all, but more stay on the aligning phase, or acting like as untreating cheerleaders for all the others around, but not that much for yourself. So this is again, mostly I do believe, especially in the environments that I was living and I'm living in, unconsciously conditions, because it's a learned one. So the first thing is to getting a start, I think, to acknowledge first our own thinkings, our own biases that we settle down in our mind. Then it's got to start to stand up, to present yourself in a way that you would like to present yourself. Because while I was listening, I'm remembering a day that I was thinking, okay, I'm a female I'm a female manager, I would like to go over as long as possible in my career, but shall I pay for it to change like a man, to dress maybe like a man, or to be more humble, to state myself, because I am as I am. I'm using, for example, my gestures too much. I'd like to present myself always standing up. Instead, today I'm sitting on because of all these new COVID normals, but always walking on the stage and so on and so forth. These are my strengths. So I try to adjust myself a little bit at the very early times of my career, especially when I was taking the frontline roles at first. But then I said, no, this is not the correct way, because then it is not me. If I will win something, then I should win it being as myself. So I will never change my style. I will act in my own principles. I will use a body language in my own style. So either I would put myself in such a the body, such a platform, and it will be accepted, or there will be other highways to go. So I think it is getting a start from that point. First, you should have accept that you're a female. Of course, there will be different characteristics, and which is very normal, which is very healthy, different from males. This is not a superior thing, or not an undergraded thing. This is by nature it's coming. So we have to be happy with our natures, and we have to find all the benefits out of it. So it starts from that point, I guess.
Thank you for that response, Funda. And what I assimilate from both Nino and you is essentially the starting point to fight against the unconscious gender biases prevalent is at self. Acknowledge first that difference exists, that these biases exist. Be clear in your own self that this is what I would and I would not. And then be assertive, exactly to Nino's point, be confident and assertive about it. That in particular was what I can do as an individual, as each one of the audiences joining today can do as an individual. But given both of you come from very, very strong corporate backgrounds as well, and have been hands-in working with the professional setup, I'm just going to move to the last question before we pick up Q&As from the audiences. What, in your view, are some of the best practices at a corporate level, at a cohesive organizational level, have you come across to overcome gender biases at workplace, at professional setups? We're talking more about what can we do collectively. Individually, we understand when we heard you, but collectively, in your view, what do you think are some of the best practices we can pick up to fight the issue of unconscious gender biases? Nino, I'm going to come first to you, and then Funda right back at you after.
Well, actually, partially, you and Funda already mentioned acknowledging this thing, right? So I think, first of all, its first step is increasing awareness. And making people aware of biased behavior is a good strategy, in my opinion. Decision makers, both male and female, must increase awareness of their own biases and try to recognize when these views are affecting their hiring or promotion processes. Managers need to create culture. It's just mainly about the culture. So managers need to create culture to provide training on unconscious bias, educate employees about their own unconscious bias. I can share my personal example. Well, I had a gentleman on my team who would ignore his female colleague during meetings. So even his body language demonstrated this. He would like turn his back to her when he was just stating his point. So, and I could feel that it caused discomfort to this woman. When I opened this topic and discussed with this person, I mean the male colleague, on one-to-one meeting, he admitted that he didn't even realize he was doing that. And increasing awareness in this case helped. However, although this does not guarantee the attitudes will change, it does help employees to understand their biases and to work towards eliminating them. So it's like bringing the unconscious to the conscious. And improve classes, asking people for feedback are a couple of ways to practice, I think. This often means getting comfortable with uncomfortable conversations and giving this feedback to, as a leader, to your team members. But awareness alone is not enough. And these biases occur subconsciously, which means we cannot correct them through conscious effort alone. And we should anchor women's development efforts in a sense of leadership purpose, rather than in how women are perceived. And these actions will give women insight into themselves and their organizations, enabling them to more effectively chart a course to leadership. And as a body of research shows, there is a paucity of role models for women, and it represents a problem. I can say about Georgia's example as well. Aspiring leaders need role models whose styles and behaviors they can experiment with and evaluate according to their own standards and others' reactions. Fewer female leaders means fewer role models. There don't seem to be enough role models who use emotional intelligence, and I mentioned previously emotional intelligence, so it is become such a maybe buzzword, or awareness about emotional intelligence increased, but actually to develop emotion and increase and improve emotional intelligence course for your employees, this is a challenge for the leader. And increasing and improving emotional intelligence means decreasing this bias automatically. It's my personal opinion, however. And it behooves all of us to figure out ways to empower the people around us, to include everyone in the discussion, and looking to male mentors to share that authority that they have almost just for the state of their gender. It's always a good idea to help younger female leaders or younger female employees just to be in the middle of the conversations and to empower them and to give them opportunity to speak up and to hear their voices. And attitude is very important as well. We need to accept both men and women in counter stereotypical rules. That what just Funda mentioned, was an example of stereotypical visioning, right? About the roles of men and women in leadership. The expectation that women should be communal makes it difficult for them to ascend to leadership roles. The expectation that men should be agentic makes it difficult for them to choose caregiving roles. However, as I mentioned, this VUC 8 times demands that male and female leaders should be more empathetic and more compassionate. So breaking gender stereotypes means that we need to allow all members of society and of our team and the freedom to choose the roles most suited to them and use the strengths that women have naturally inherited and coded in their gender, right? So
absolutely,
we are all part of the problem, and female decision makers are just as biased as men, and we are all part of the solution, and men are in positions of power where they can and do help the women in the organizations rise to the top. So the more we can work together to create positive change, the faster the change will happen.
thank you. Puna, do you want to add your quick 2 cents before we pick up 2 Q&As that we already have up for us to be answered?
Yeah, Dola, sure. Again, it is always, I'm totally echoing Nino. And what I need to say, it is always easier to talk than to deploy all these things in your daily life. So even though, as I made it as an opening speech, it's kind of an utopia to live today within a totally gender-free, gender-bias-free environment. However, we shall really effort day by day, and to be a role model, to ask for, to encourage others, not only women. This is not only related with women issue. This is not only a women issue. This is a society issue, I believe. This is a whole earth issue, and it is impacting. At the end of the day, maybe maybe majority of men believing that it is not impacting themselves, but it is, yes, impacting all the society and those themselves. So it is important to add it up and taking support of demands. It is important to stand up and talk it about. For example, for the companies, it is easier to write SOPs to state the conditions which is supporting a non-gender bias environment. However, if you are weak or in a positive way, if you are not strong enough to put all these policies in place, really in place, and believing by heart, and willing to deploy these SOPs in real terms, then it will never work enough. So it all gets started really to live with that philosophy. And yes, it is not an easy job, but any hard works get us start with small steps. And at the very beginning, it was not easy at all. So as we have reached out at least to some level of development, let's keep going to effort for it as a collaborative work, men to women, because without men, I'm also asking from here to invite taking a full step with their whole presence to men, because without them, we cannot strong enough as only women to come over this important issue.
Thank you so much for that response, Funda. I think it beautifully sums up the critical issue of unconscious biases and how it's an equal responsibility across self as well as the corporate organization that you're working for, and both men and women to kind of tag together to resolve this. What I have for us now are some very gemful questions up from the enthusiastic audiences out here. The first one is actually specifically for Nino, and this one comes from Arpita Ghatak. Arpita asks Nino that it's often mentioned that it's difficult to balance motherhood and work. But in fact, in her personal experiences, she believes that motherhood has contributed significant new nuances to her leadership style, whether it's the ability to care for her team, whether it's ability to encompass a larger decision and be much wise about it. She's in fact benefited. She wants to know from you, how has your experience been? And do you also similarly agree that motherhood in fact just adds much more to your leadership experience and style?
Thank you so much for this question. I'm just honestly very thankful because yes, I fully agree with that. And actually, I always think about that when I just observe myself just being a mother. I always think that I can recall how many skills that it added to me. And yes, even if we are speaking about the multitasking and multitasking when you are performing your job, well, motherhood definitely teaches you how to multitask. So yes, of course. And actually, there is a hypothesis I've heard from psychologists that that's why women are, the evidence shows and demonstrates the three main differences between women and men in personality traits really exist, and inquisitiveness, impulsivity, and sensitivity. So women are more sensitive and more compassionate. And psychologists attribute to the motherhood that when you are a mother, you need to be more empathetic, more compassionate. So yes, definitely. And I mentioned already that in these difficult times of constant change and temporarity in business and in every industry, we leaders are just asked to support our employees to be more empathetic, more compassionate, to cultivate creative thinking and creativity. What people really, how people can really compete with this, with the artificial intelligence, is creativity, right? So yes, I don't know if I answered your question, but thank you for this question.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to take one last, and Funda, this one's for you, and we're going to keep it extremely short because we have the next set of panelists already over. But this one question's for you, Funda. More often than not, I myself, I don't have a name for the person asking the question, but the question is, more often than not, I myself put a lot of self-expectation, and the pressure around that keeps building up. What, in your advice, can I do to elevate myself from the pressure of self-expectation and continue doing great as a women leader?
I think the very good question, and I'm feeling the same, always feeling the same, but please do not take this as a bad thing. This is a good thing to put yourself an expectation, and but just you need to make a balance, not to drive this expectation into a fear. At the end of the day, these are so normal, human feelings, and these are making us maybe to motivate to go further. So the most difficult thing is a 1 second to get a start. So tell yourself that there is nothing, there is nothing at the end of the day. Even there will be a failure, even we are shy, even we are having difficulties. But the worst thing is not to try. So be prepared, believe in yourself, and just tell yourself that I'm courage enough to take it. And if there is if something goes wrong, then I will retry again. So this will give you in time more and more courage. And when you are getting used to that, it will come automatically. So whatever you are, it's all correct. And believe it or not, even men and women are feeling the same. So everybody is feeling as you are. So you are not alone.
Thank you so much for that, Nino and Funda. And that's a wrap from our side. Back to you, Hina, as you take forward this fantastic discussion.
Thank you so much, Dola, Nino, Funda. What a magnificent discussion we had, and I'm sure our audiences enjoyed it totally. While we know that 68% respondents feel that the biases have negative effect on their productivity, if leaders make that conscious effort of understanding their own biases and encourage authenticity, I'm sure we can win over this. And not only that, team members have to understand themselves first and make a conscious effort and be curious to understand others' perspective. Request you all to please take the poll so that we understand how we have enlightened you totally. And moving forward to our next panel. All right, the results are here. Okay, so we are glad to know that 76% of you have enjoyed the panel and could take your own key takeaways. With that, I would like to call upon the founder of the Corporate Diva platform and How Forum back on the stage to host our next eminent speaker, Mr. Mohan Das Pai. Mr. Mohan Das Pai, over a career spanning of 37 years, has served in the areas of finance, accounting, information technology, human resource education, corporate governance, social impact innovation, environmental conversation, policy formation, heritage preservation, philanthropy, and it doesn't stop there, the venture and startup ecosystem. Mr. Mohan is currently the chairman of Areen Capital, chairman of Manipal Global Education, member of the boards of Havels India and Institute of Public Enterprises, member of the board of governors and National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, governing council member of Center for Advanced Financial Research and Learning, promoted by the Reserve Bank of India. He is holding the position of Chairman of the Regulatory and Financial Technology Committee of the Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, and Chairman of the SEBI Primary Markets Advisory Committee. Mr. Mohan was previously a board member and CFO of Infosys over a span of 17 long years, along with being a trustee and board member of varied eminent organizations. He is also a founder trustee of Akshay Patra Foundation as a give back to his society. He was awarded the Padma Shri Award by the President of India in 2015 and the Karnataka Rajyotsava Award in 2008. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Mohan Das Pai. And with that, Deepika, handing over to you to address this eminent section, Rights of the Women Leader, with Mr. Mohan.
Thank you so much, Hina. And good afternoon, sir. What an honor to have you join us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Such a pleasure. We're really looking forward to some insightful, and impactful comments coming from your end. And I'd like to begin the discussion with asking you that, what have been some key factors or reasons that have led you to work so passionately towards women's development, and why higher education in particular was the area that you chose?
Well, Deepika, all of us have to understand that our success in life is due to the women in our lives who sacrifice everything for us. It takes time for you to understand. My mother was a school teacher. She walked to school for 30 years every day to save the bus fare for my education. We didn't need the money, but she did it. She made sure we went to school, we came back from school, we did our homework, and we had to be first in class. And when I was ill, after doing my chartered accountancy, she spent time with me in the hospital to nurse me back to health. I mean, is an outstanding woman. And my wife, used to work with me, and she sacrificed her life to bring up her two boys, and she gave up her dreams. You see, it hits you some point in your life. So my view is, no society can succeed unless women succeed in society. It is up to society to create the conditions where all women can succeed. And it's going to take time, but I think the people in society have to make special efforts to make it happen. Then only society can be successful. It cannot be a male-dominated society. It has to be a society where all genders have equal participation, equal opportunities, and the ability to fulfill their dreams. And it's very important because without that, we won't be a good society. Next, I was Director HR in Infosys. In my tenure of 5 years, we hired about maybe 200,000 people, trained 250,000 people. And one of the things I looked at is, why do women not come back from maternity? Which was an interesting piece of data. Only 55% of women came back from maternity. And we had a shortage of people. I said, why are these wonderful people who got in, worked so hard, not coming back? And then we looked at the policies, and we found some biases in the policies. Not because they did deliberately, but they were biases and possibly did not help. First of all, we had to create a more caring culture in a high performance culture for women who are going to be mothers. All right? Because the high performance culture, everything is performance. So when we looked at data, we found that when women took maternity leave, the leave was a factor for them not to get promotion when they're due. All right? And so we said, maternity leave is work. It's not leave, it's work. And you can't discriminate. Second thing we did was, we looked at the ratio of women to men and promotions and asked deep questions, why women are not getting the share of promotions, especially when they're high performers. And the third thing we did was to make sure that when a woman has a baby, we asked one of the senior women there to become a mentor and a guide to them to help them come back. We changed our policies to give them 2 years of leave without pay after giving them maternity leave and all the benefits they get. Then we said, we're going to start satellite offices where you can come and work. You can work from home. All this is 13, 14 years ago. Remember that. And then we found, Deepika, wonderfully, 85% of women came back. 85%. From 55% to 85%. Then after I left Infosys, I was in higher education. I started studying. And we found an interesting thing. About 55, 60% of the class in medical colleges are women. But I'll tell you a funny thing. In Manipal University, I told the Chancellor, Dr. Pai, that we have to reserve some seats for men because at 60%, women will soon be 75%. We do men too, isn't it? We don't need men in medicine, right? We do need them. It cannot be all women. And then when I looked at data last year, I found for the first time, we'll be so happy, the gross enrollment rate for women in India is higher than men for the first time. In the United States, 56% of all graduates are women. In future, by 2025, I think about 55% of all graduates will be women. So if you look at higher education, is a means of emancipation, is a means of giving something to the girl child, something to women to make sure they get the skills and responsible to play the role in society. And then Nisha and I, but Nisha is my daughter-in-law, we wrote many articles on this and we looked at data. What is the prime reason behind population growth? We found something which you might know. Highly educated women have lesser babies. And we found that women who are got a postgraduate have one child, women with a graduate 1.5, there's an average, and women with 10th class education are 3 children, women in 5th class are 4 children. And today, fertility in our society has come down. India's fertility is 2.0. We need 2.3 to be replacement rate. In the whole of South India is 1.1. So today, every human being is precious. Every girl child is precious. Every child is precious. And every child should be invested in. That means in our society, if you have to do better, the role of women will only become bigger and only become better. Now, all this data has enabled us to come to the conclusion, you should be happy I'm saying it in public. And I want to say to everybody, this is the decade of the Indian women. Indian women are going to dominate society. They're going to rise. They're going to come in work. 17% of all directors in Indian companies are women. It's one of the highest in the world. 35% of all senior people in across industry in India are women compared to the West. We are very, I think we're the 3rd largest number of women in the senior positions. And we also find that women in professions are coming up. In engineering, in Infosys, 40% incoming batch was women when I was there about 12 years ago. Now it should be higher. So in all areas, but what we need to do, we need to look at the margin. What are women doing today? Very often when we talk about women, our minds are cluttered by injustice of the past, a patriarchal society and all the stuff that people talk about. But if you look at the margin today, I think women are doing very well. Women will do well. And we as a society have to put in many things in place to make sure they do much, much better. And I was lucky to have 2 women head of HR reporting to me. And of course, both of them dominated me. I could not take any decisions. I had to sign off on whatever they said. And I did. Of course I did, because they were so wonderful. They were so extremely talented and they were great leaders. But I found one thing that they wanted support. They wanted support because whenever they took a decision, they wanted to discuss to make sure they don't make any mistakes because they were cautious. They were a little bit more cautious. They came and asked, and so long as you support them, they do very well. And they could take tough decisions. They could take tough decisions like anybody else. They don't like anything. So I'm very proud to say this is the decade of the Indian women, and I'll be the proudest Indian in the country to watch women grow and dominate this decade and in the future.
I'm so glad, sir, that you in an international forum have, kind of brought forth and highlighted the fact that they could take tough decisions, because a lot of women grapple with that where, a lot of people don't trust them to take those tough decisions. So I'm so happy that you highlighted that fact. There was an interesting, while we had a conversation, there was an interesting fact that you came up with in terms of positive discrimination, where you yourself have gone ahead and built colleges exclusively for women. You've also somewhere, brought in various, let's say in terms of dress codes and all of that, brought in sensitization towards the ethnicity, let's say of the burqa and things like that. So I think, what role do you think positive discrimination has? Because people have a different perspective of positive discrimination. How do you think that leads towards the development of women?
Well, I think society requires positive discrimination to make sure nobody's left behind. People are left behind for various reasons, history, the fact that they don't have enough economic opportunities, etc. And India has done very well. I think India must get full credit, even though the West tries to beat on India as regards women. India has done well. 50% of panchayats posts. We have 650,000 villages. They have panchayats where there are leaders elected. 50% of posts should have a woman leader. And in the second tier of government, the Zilla Panchayat too, I think 35% should have women leaders. All right. And in parliament, we have been demanding, many are demanding that 35% of all the members should be women. I think we are 15 or 17% now. Politics is a power game. It takes a little bit of time because, nobody wants to disturb power. So positive discrimination has worked in creating women leaders. And in the villages, women become leaders. First, the men, their husbands were ruling in women's name. Because remember, villages are very different thing from urban areas. Slowly, the women have started coming into the war. And they are now ruling. And they're keeping their husbands away. And we have seen one thing, I think all the data tells you, wherever women have done well, the village has done well. They focus on education, they focus on societal health, they focus on the well-being, they made sure money is well spent, corruption is very much less. And that's remarkable in our villages. Now, if you turn to other areas too, you find that, in corporate boards, SEBI, our market regulator, said every listed company should have one woman who's an independent member. I was part of the committee that recommended that because we didn't have enough women members. I hope they increase it to maybe 2/3, maybe 1/3 in future. But most boards have a woman member. That's very good. And they bring a different perspective board discussion. I think that's happening in a very big way. And then we also have cases where there is a lot of scholarships given for women. India has a ministry for women and child welfare. A lot of scholarships are given for girls. Now Muslim girls have done extremely well. And in positive discrimination, let me give some data, Deepika. We have the scheduled castes in this country, who are a group of people who are listed in the constitution called the scheduled caste, who get positive discrimination in jobs and colleges. They form 16.6% of population. They're 14.5% of students. They were very low 10 years back. Now they're 14.5%. The scheduled tribes, 8.8% of population, 5.9%. Muslims are behind, 15% of population. They're only 5.2% of students in colleges. But Muslim girls and boys are enrolling in colleges from 2011-12 to now at the rate of 7.5% and 7.9% a year. That means they're really coming up. And Muslim girls are going more and more to school and college, and that's wonderful. And in schools, we have more girls than boys in school. You'll be very happy. There are more girls than boys in school. That means India is fundamentally changing and will change and in future. And if you look at backward communities, they're 40% and 36% in college. So positive discrimination in the last 70 years worked to bring section society forward who are not being given opportunities. And maybe the cake was not big enough because we are a poor country. So all this has worked. I remember about that incident I told you in India, in Infosys. We went to, we found there not enough Muslims among our group, not because of discrimination, because just that they were not in the colleges where we went. So we said, let's go to colleges where there are more Muslims because we want the section society to come and get jobs, provided they pass our test. So we got a lot of them in. And there were some Muslim girls who came in and started working. And we were overjoyed. They came on merit. There is no charity. They came on merit. They worked very hard. One day, HR came to me and said, sir, their Muslim women are coming. They're wearing the burqa. They're not following the company dress. In our companies, you have to dress. There's a company code of dress. You can't wear that. So I too said, okay, let us talk to them. Let's see what to do. Then I thought about it and said, look, they have come after great difficulty. They have got societal pressures to put the burqa because we found that some of the Muslim boys were coming up together and forcing the women to wear the burqa within the company. Let me tell you this. I've not told anybody. It's very sad. But then I told them, look, they come from outside. Leave them alone. Let them become comfortable. Don't ask them. Don't put pressure on them because we don't want them to drop off. So what I'm trying to say is we have to create these conditions out of the way where we have to wear some rules because we have to make people comfortable. We have to give opportunities. And this kind of positive discrimination really works. And we should do it as a society. And we should do it willingly. And if we do that, we'll be a better society. Because remember, this country belongs to all of us. All of us have equal rights. We can't have anybody dominate. Somebody is left behind, you must go. And to me, gender is the most important thing. And there is some more good news I want to give you. In 1956, the Hindu personal law was amended with the Hindu Code Bill, right? And then, but girls were not given ancestral property. They only had their father's property, not the ancestral property. We went to the boys because they said that girls get money and jewelry when they get married. Why should we give them? But the Supreme Court held Supreme Court held that is discriminatory 15 years ago. Now in Hindu society, all girls get equal share in ancestral property. Now, if a woman become economically strong, she gets property like a boy, like the male child. I mean, that's fantastic. There should be no discrimination. It's only in Muslim society now we need a law where, in this country, we need a law to say the Indian woman right to equality law, where all Indian women, irrespective of religion, irrespective of ethnicity or background, get equal rights. I think there's one more thing that we need in social reforms. So I think this kind of positive discrimination to make sure that women enjoy the rights guaranteed to them by the Constitution. And please remember, these rights are not given gratis. It's not a favor from anybody. It's given by our Constitution, by our founding fathers. It is our right. So women get equal rights, equal opportunities to do that. I think will be a better society.
I think a very, very important aspect that you highlighted was, which is a great move for us, has been the law on inheritance. And so can you highlight a few things as to how financial confidence, financial independence leads to the rise of a woman?
Deepika, the woman in this country takes the burden of raising children. It is there. It is there. That's the fact. I don't want to debate the right or wrong. It is a fact. In Rajasthan, we worked with Chief Minister Vasundhara Raje, and we bought an insurance program called Bhamasha, whereby if the breadwinner of the family dies, the family gets 1 lakh rupees. Because remember, in the traditional society, the breadwinner is the male. If something happens to him, the woman is left with children. What will she do? And half of them are uneducated in traditional society. What will she do? Look at her life. Her husband is gone, male earner is gone. She's got children to bring up. I mean, it's a big, big thing. And she will not divest herself responsibility. She will fight all the way. She will eat 1 meal less a day, but she wants her child to be educated. That is the Indian mother. So important scheme to give, and wonderful things happen. Suddenly the family, wherever people are disadvantaged, they started coming up, and you saw these things are happening. So what we should do as a society is to make sure that women get economic independence. What does it happen? We must make sure that, one parent families, where the parent is a woman, gets a grant from the government, a pension from the government. We must make sure that widows get pension from the government. We must make sure that women who are aged get pension from the government. And we must make sure that there are more scholarships for girls. And we must make sure that there's no gender discrimination in hiring. Now, in hiring in many government organizations everywhere, there could be a bias. And there could be a bias. Because I've heard many people say, oh, if I hire you, you'll have children, you'll go for maternity, and what we'll do about work. That is very wrong. I mean, it looks very logical to, we got to be honest, but that's very wrong, because if women don't have children, who's going to have children? And with no children, society will die. We'll all go, right? We'll all disappear. So we need children. And it's only women who can have children. And if you don't support women or children, why will women have children? So I think it's very important that in recruitment, in groups who recruit, we have equal males and females there. And I could say this, but I'll get bashed up. I hope I not. Wherever a woman is a HR head, more than 60-70% of the employees are women. It happened to me on my watch. I had to tell my women leaders, please hire some men too. Please balance it out. It happens. But I think we should make sure that more women get economic benefits, because they have property, they get their own income. They're very cautious, and they take care of the children, they take care of the family, and the society is much better off. But Deepika, I want to be very honest with you. I don't want to be politically correct. I want to be honest, because honesty and honesty and stating facts are important if you want to change, and we should change. So I strongly believe the society should discriminate positively in favor of women economically too.
So while we are highlighting, the economic importance of a woman being economically independent, as well as adding to the economy, now coming to the sphere of women entrepreneurs, or even let's say women corporate employees, how important do you think is the significance of role models for them?
Deepika, I think you hit upon the nail. Look at Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. Kiran had a dream 45 years ago, and today she's the biggest woman entrepreneur, self-made, a billionaire, and she's recognized everywhere. But it's a hard journey for her. Nobody gave her a break. Nobody gave her money. They were against her. They asked us questions, but she stuck to it. So she can be successful. Now, why don't women become entrepreneurs? It is just because, one, they hesitate to take risk. Because, there is family, there is everything else. Children become important, family become important. Second, they're a little bit more cautious than men. Why they're more cautious than men? Because they want to understand all the risks before taking a decision. But once they take the decision, they will take whatever risk. They're not behind men in any risk taking, but they're a little bit more cautious. So once they decide, they will go whole hog. They will be very, very clear what they want to do. So we have to create conditions where women become entrepreneurs. And for that, what should we do? We need special funds to invest in women entrepreneurs. You'll be happy that Aryan Capital started or co-funded SAHA. SAHA is the first women entrepreneurship fund in technology. They invested in 9 women enterprises. They've done very well. They've done well. And I think we need more of that. I've been talking to government to have 1,000 crore fund to only fund women entrepreneurs or enterprises where women are co-founders or founders, or where women are in majority. Because we have to have entrepreneurs and entities where women are leading and women are the entrepreneurs. And they will do well. For example, we have invested in about 300 startups. In many of them, we got a woman co-founder, and they do very well, and they're as good or better than the men. There's no difference. There is no difference. And they do very well. They will understand. So we got to create this kind of funding, because women don't like to borrow money. Please, they don't like to borrow money. They want to make sure they can pay it back first. Whereas, men will borrow money and say, okay, we'll see later. We can make sure. And if they fail, they say, okay, we'll do something. But women are very cautious. They don't like to fail. They're very cautious. I mean, that's an upbringing. Right or wrong, I don't want to debate. So we have to create fund for women entrepreneurs, give grants for women. For example, in Karnataka, we have something called the Elevate program, where 100 startups get 50 lakhs each for, winning a program as a grant. Now, why can't we have a program where 100 enterprises by women get a 50 lakh grant to start up the enterprise? Because we need to give them, and they will do very well. I think all these things are required. So we got Kiran Mazumdar-Shah, we got Sangeeta Talwar, who has been in the Nestle and other places, and we got so many other leaders, leaders who are coming up. And in startups and technology, there are very many of them. There's Nivruti Rai, who's leading in Intel, etc. So a lot of coming up. But if they have role models and they have some mentors, they look up to them, because you need some role models who reflect the experience you're going through, right? True. Now, can a Mukesh Ambani be a role model for a woman? It can be. It's possible. There's no doubt about it. But Mukesh Ambani will not have the experience that a woman entrepreneur, budding woman entrepreneur has. Where a Kiran Shah would have gone through it. So we need many, many more of them. There are enough, Deepika, but you must showcase them. You must make them come and talk to people. You must showcase them, make them available. And you must create a group of people who can support them and make sure they get whatever it is, and support them and give them the faith and the courage to do things. I think it's very important to have this role model. But now there are role models in India and globally, but you must showcase them, and that's your job.
Absolutely, sir. I think a very valid point brought forth by you was that, yes, men also can be role models, but I think the relatability aspect, the sharing of the journey, the sharing of the experiences are far more relatable when you have women role models who've achieved it and have come forth to kind of share their experiences to encourage other women. So in this, while we're talking about women role models, my next thing is then there's huge significance of men Samaritans like you who've come forth to build women leaders. What do you say? How important is the role of men to come forward and support women leaders?
I think the role of men is very important, because let us understand, men dominate economics, men dominate politics in most countries. And in some other countries, women are coming up, which is very good. So we as men should go out of the way to nurture the aspiration of women by making sure they get opportunity, by supporting them, removing any biases in the system, standing up with them and giving them confidence to do well, and stepping aside when they reach levels where they could run everywhere, and making sure that they get the right break. I think it's extremely important. For example, if you're on the boards, you must ask why there's no gender balance. Why we're not having more women on the board? And if you're recruiting, you must say why there are not enough women candidates. Why are there not enough women coming up, etc. And I think you've got to do all that, because, women and men are equal in performance everywhere. Maybe women do better. I'm coming to the conclusion women may do better, but then they need a break, and I think they must do it. And for that, they must remove the bias. So men can do a lot by ensuring equal opportunity, by talking to government to bring in policies for positive discrimination. Now, many people quarrel for positive discrimination. I was the chair of the educational committee for the government of Karnataka. We wrote a report on education. We discovered an interesting thing. In the north of Karnataka, the gross enrollment rate for girls was very much less. So we suggested we have more girl colleges. But there were women on the panel who said, no, how can you do that? You can't discriminate. Why are you writing only for women? We don't want everything for women. Then we told them, look, there are conservative families there. If they're co-ed, they will not send the girl. What do we want? We want girls to come to college. We want them to get educated. We want them to do well. We want them to have skills. And if that means you have more girls' colleges in those areas, so be it. After one generation, things will change. After one generation, things will change. Things are going to change. But get that girl educated. Get that girl opportunity. So we insisted, we put it there. Government started many colleges. They have a women university which expanded. Now gross enrollment rate is going up. Like that, I think we as men to step up to the plate, ask this question. Because, remember, women don't threaten us. Many men feel women will threaten us if they become leaders. How will I work under a woman boss? It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. There's nothing wrong. Indira Gandhi was the prime minister, right? What is wrong? And one political party in India has a woman as the head. And there have been chief ministers who've been women. They've done very well. There's nothing wrong. We're all human beings, except we have a different gender. So if you're good, everybody will recognize you. Politics is a game of power for everybody. So it doesn't matter. So I think all these things have to do. And we men have a responsibility and have to take special effects. Because for us, we have to decide what is good for society. What is good for society is both men and women, and the third gender should get equal opportunities, and they must have.
So globally, sorry to interrupt, but in fact, globally, it's a proven fact that women are just going to add on to the economic aspect of it as well.
And we don't have to be defensive. It is the right. It's the right by birth. It's the right to equal opportunity all around the world. It is not a favor. Nobody is doing them a favor. You're only removing the bias so that you are discharging your obligation to reduce the bias. Okay, we're not doing a favor. We are discharging our duty and the obligation to reduce the bias in society, so society becomes better. So I think those are extremely important.
Some very, very powerful insights there. I mean, I'm personally absorbing so much from what what you're downloading onto us, and it's amazing that you've shown us the positive aspect also, yet you have kind of highlighted on the fact that men also now need to start making noise for women, and the support of women. And I think if one takeaway that I would say, my personal takeaway from this conversation has been that you very strongly advocate that the hand that rocks the cradle really can rule the world and does rule the world.
No, I think the world will be a better place. The world will be a better place. Because the world is a better place if everybody gets opportunities. World requires peace. The world requires peace. World requires compassion, right? And let's not understand, men who created the two great wars. And the world now cannot have another war. World requires compassion, and we need to give women their due. They have to play the role, and there's no going back. And it's happening all over. My only request is, let us celebrate the success of women. We should celebrate the success of women. We must showcase them and give the positive aspect, because Deepika, there's so many things wrong in every society. If we focus on all the wrong things everywhere, it's not going to create a positive environment. Yes, we must address them. We must be honest. We must address them, accept it, that there is discrimination, there is bias, but you must remove that. But if you showcase success, more girls and women will come forward. They will play the role. They'll have the confidence to stand up. Women should stand up. And they should say, we want this right. In fact, people like you should talk to your prime minister, should talk to your president, should write to our members of parliament and tell them, this is what we want. This is what we want to keep the field more equal. We want this positive discrimination a favor. It is a right given to us by constitution. And please make it happen, because you are a representative. You must be more vocal in that. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of support in this country and globally.
Absolutely, sir. You personally are empowering me. So you never know, the letter might just go out. So great, sir. So at the backdrop of the summit now, what are your 3 key snippets of advice to a global audience here in terms of the rise of the woman as a leader?
See, my 3 snippets of advice for your audience is, please stand up for your rights and ensure that you get your rights everywhere. Because, we live in societies largely where rights are guaranteed by the constitution, and we have our rights. And let us look at areas where women don't get the rights and make sure they're able to get the rights by putting in place proper processes, etc. That's one I want to. Second, let us work to remove biases in the system, unconscious bias, biases, etc. We have to be honest to accept there are biases. A human being is full of biases. When a woman is full of biases, a man is full of biases. We are full of biases. Now, as the biases regarding gender, conscious or unconscious, let us try to remove them. And third, let us showcase success. Let us celebrate success. Let us showcase success, because success will be an inspiration for others. If we showcase failure all the time, then what will happen? People will develop antagonism. Let's not create negativity. Let us showcase successes. Let us be successors. Let us celebrate. For example, we happen to know there's something called the Better India. Better India is a portal, only good news and successful things are put on them. Because you wake up, Deepika, in the morning, you want to go to work, you want to read, be positive. And if you read the newspaper, everything is negative, your mood is gone. And it's the positive energy that you need, that we can change the world. So we should celebrate successes, not hide our failures. We must face failures, acknowledge them and improve them, but celebrate more of successes so more people will get confidence, and make sure women and girls in general have the confidence to realize their dream. Everybody dreams. You dream, I dream, but it doesn't matter what gender you are. We all have dreams. You must enable all young people to realize their dream. I think these are the three things that I would tell everybody as takeaway from this conference.
Very powerful, sir. Speak up for your rights and get rid of biases and celebrate successes. I think if that's the mindset one can kind of put into in these three simple takeaways, we definitely can achieve the desired change, the desired shift. It may be a longer journey, but at least we're on the journey and there is positivity happening. And thanks for bringing in so much of positivity to the summit, sir. It's been such an honor interacting with you. Thank you for your precious time that you have devoted to us.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presence.
Happy to be here.
Thank you so much.
Happy to be here. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Wow, such an exceptional, sterling, statistics-driven conversation we all witnessed. I must appreciate each and every answer Mr. Pai has given, and you have added extra power to the platform. With each and every stats you gave, and it is as per the survey done by Bentley University, it is very well said, which Mr. Pai also highlighted, that 65% of the men did not believe gender diversity was a business critical issue. There is always a lack of understanding on the impact of women on their ROI or their numbers. And Mr. Pai has brought forth it so candidly and so immaculately that yes, this is the weakness what our ecosystem exists, and we need to deal with it and sharpen it to throw more light on this sensitive issue, but still bringing that light in the end of the tunnel that men do stand as an ally for women. We are coming up with the next strong panel. I would like to call upon the expert navigator, Ms. Deepika Trihan, again back on the stage with me, while we call upon there she is with me, the founder of How Forum and Corporate Diva platform, and she would be taking forth the panel as an expert navigator with Dr. Oleg Konovalov from Russia. Dr. Oleg is a thought leader, author, business educator, consultant, and a coach with over 25 years of experience operating businesses and consulting Fortune 500 companies, both in UK and globally. Oleg is...
Hello, thank you very much for inviting. It's a great honor and great day, Women's Day. Thank you.
Great. So Oleg is on Thinkers 50 radar and has been recognized as #1 global thought leader on culture by Thinkers 360. He is #1 global leading coach in Marshall Goldsmith Thinkers 50 and has been named as one of the top 10 most inspiring global thought leader by The Excelligent. Having been named as the Da Vinci of visionary leadership by many leading authorities of our time, Dr. Oleg is helping companies to create and execute their vision, maintain a strong productive corporate culture, and achieve superior business performance. He is the author of several renowned books, with The Vision Quote being his most recent release, and make sure to grab a copy of that. To join this panel, we have another eminent personality, Mr. Abdullah Hassan from Kuwait. Globally acclaimed speaker and mentor on entrepreneurship, having conducted more than 100 online workshops and live lectures. Mr. Abdullah, in October 2020, Oxford University backed Bootcamp, and they have invited him to deliver lectures to the global participants attending the workshop online. His career in the technology industry includes working for Forbes 100 company, British Telecom as Director Strategy and Business Development for Middle East markets, and participating as a board member on advisory board of Delta Capital, one of the first VC tech funds launched in the region in 2008. He co-founded in 2015 a VC fund in UK and initiated participation for another US fund as well. His role as co-founder and CEO of the fund included participating as board member on the boards of some of those investment alongside global giants like Mercedes Germany, Sony Japan, Horizon Ventures Hong Kong, Intel US, and Arcomex UAE. Mr. Abdullah quotes, "The world does not stop when you do. It only begins when you start." He doesn't stop there. He keeps wrinkling his wonderful pearls of wisdom on LinkedIn. I'm his ardent follower, and please do join him there. With that, Deepika, I'm handing over the baton to you back. Take this forth with this eminent gentleman present over here.
Thank you, Hina, and welcome, Mr. Abdullah and Dr. Oleg. And what a proud moment for me. I mean, often I'm, kind of told by everybody that you're a woman's champion, and you're always focusing on women and things like that. But I think today, this International Women's Day couldn't have got more inclusive than having such eminent men coming forth who have been Samaritans in building women leaders and making a difference in the presence of women in the workspace. So thank you for joining in. It's been wonderful interacting with you in the past as well, and I'm sure the audience today would have lots and lots of enriching takeaways from the panel. I'd like to begin the discussion here with a question common to both of you is, what is the importance of men supporting women? Where do you think that is the significance, the relevance, or their contribution important in terms of women leadership development? Any of you could take it first.
Doctor, go ahead. I'll follow you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deepika. Thank you, Abdullah. And thank you for inviting me into this important conversation. There are a few things on this planet which defines our life in a good sense. Love, care, happiness. And we all have, men and women, are the same common understanding of them. Yeah, we give slight differences, but the common understanding is there. Vision is another example of such thing which defines our lives. And vision has no gender. Can we say love has a gender? No, the same about vision. Vision is important for men and for women, particularly when we're thinking about living purposeful lives or creating a purposeful or meaningful businesses. And the greatness of your success and how you would live your life is defined by the greatness of your vision. From business perspective, it would be the same. If you have a clear, strong vision, what do you do for people, you will be successful. You will be rewarded, regardless men or women. No difference. In fact, what I have found, men and women are equal in visionary traits. They all have the most common visionary traits, like in terms of thinking about others, it's about being focused on solutions and things like that. They're equal. There are no difference. What I'm saying, we can't build anything great based on competition or on some kind of a faulty things. We could build only on something which is really strong and effective. In this sense, competition is nothing about progress. Competition is not a necessity between men and women. Competition is a willingness. I want to compete against something. It's like kids in a sandbox. Wrong. So we need men and women to reveal the greatness of each other. That's quite important. It's not about blaming each other. And vision is our aspiration for the future where we strive to make it reality today, and we do it together. I need women as allies to create that bright future and bring everyone's energy to it. What I would say, yes, we look at the things a bit differently. Men are more concerned about creating some kind of a capitalization value. Women are more about adding value as it comes. In the simple terms, men are about to build a house and a woman is about to make it a home. I need both. So it can't stand separately. In this, I have 2 points. First, it is very important to know what kind of value you bring on a table for men and for women. Women are not very good at articulating what kind of value they bring on that table. Because if you have value, it will be capitalized, it will be appreciated, it will be rewarded. And a strange thing, I was going through quite a in-depth research about visionaries and how they think. And what I have found, women quite often are shy to talk about their visions. They are great. I know quite a few brilliant women across the globe, from different countries. They're shy. And that restricts them from growing their vision, to be more visible. They're very respectful, they're well off, but men are more open to communicate their visions. This is something I still don't have an answer yet.
But I think we need more and more men.
Yeah. And there we need to, again, to be multipliers of each other's success, to be multipliers of each other's value. So we need women's visions. We need them to act as value-adding leaders. It's not about statistics. It's about how we contribute to that value. Thank you.
True. Thank you so much, Dr. Oleg. Mr. Hassan, coming to you, the same question. Why should men come forth as allies to women's development?
Okay, first of all, lovely being here, Deepika. As always, you do a very, very good show. I like the fact that you raise important issues. This is very close to me. This is very important to me, both because my wife works in the corporate world and she's gone through the struggles that she has. I'm father of 2 daughters, one who's already working and facing the same struggles, and my younger girl who's now studying and she would be facing the same struggles. And listen, while I respect and appreciate everybody's very interesting point of view, the fact remains that the challenge faced by women has not reduced, even if centuries have passed. So I'll give you a simple example. I'm from technology. Try doing research, simple facts. I always say facts speak louder than words, right? So facts speak louder than words. If you look at Google, how many number of women are in their top management? Less than 10%. In fact, the head of inclusion, the VP of inclusion, diversity, is a woman. They would have 25, 27 men and nice, very well-qualified 9 women. Look at Microsoft, less than 5% women. In India, it's unforgivable what happens in Asia, most of Asia, actually. You look at all the top 3 Indian tech firms. Only one has 3 women in their management, only one. Okay, I'm from technology, so I'm telling you something that I have lived in the last 25 years. to very politely and nicely say, hey, look at that successful woman. Hey, look at that successful woman. Listen, this is not equal play field. Equal play field is when you say there's an athletic sports for men and there's athletic sports for women. So these will have gold medals and these will have gold medals. But when you say that there is one set of games everybody has to come into and the pool of talent has to come in, the logic has to apply. Any country in Asia or in the Western world has a majority of females taking college degrees, not men. So by default, the ratio of top management or successful entrepreneurship should be equal, if not a little close. The diversity is so large that you can fit a continent through it. So to highlight 10 or 15 successful women and to sideline very hardworking millions, if not billions of women is not done. And this amount of decorative cosmetic speeches needs to stop. I'll give you another example. Grand Slam, tennis, right? Who's won the largest amount of Grand Slams? Is it Roger Federer or is it Serena Williams? I'll tell you, it's Serena Williams, 24. Roger Federer, 20. What's Serena Williams' net worth? Google it, don't take my word for it. And look at Roger Federer. There's no comparison. And then again, there will be explanations for this. There'll be very good arguments put up by whom? By us men. So we are very good at this. We create a barrier, we sell the barrier, and then we promote the barrier, and then we give excuses for the barrier, and then we say, hey, hang on. See those 3 women in my 1,000 large company? See, gender equality. See how many colleges and schools we've got for women? Gender equality. So we will do everything to make sure that the alpha male remains alpha. So even when you want to talk in management schools, when you want to talk about domination, you talk about alpha. Okay, lion and king of the jungle and all of that. I think the perception to the problem needs to be addressed first and not the solution. Because the solutions are very cosmetic. It's always the icing on the cake. It's never the cake. It's always that, hey, listen, we've got Deepika there. We've got Shalini there. We've got Mary there. We've got Jane there. And guess what? We've also got another Radhika right there. We're not going to talk about the 1,000 Vijay's or the 10,000 Abdullahs or the 50,000 Marks or the 11 million Johns that are coming through. So I think the issue that I'm personally seeing is an issue of trying to perceive the situation rather than discuss the solution, because I don't understand it. Microsoft does $146 billion in a year. What is their excuse for not having enough women on their board? What's their excuse? Because even in America, the largest number of degree holders are women every year. Top students, women every year. You're recruiting your best people from these colleges, right? So what's going wrong? I'll tell you what's going wrong. It's the same pressure. It is, I will put Deepika as head of equality and diversity simply because now I know she's going to be the gate for me. She's going to make sure not too many women, because remember, if you hire too many women, I'm going to point it out to you. Oh, Deepika, you're a female, you got too many women. So the pressures that a woman, I'll give you one example and then I'll probably stop this part of the discussion. When my wife was, she got a new job in a very large investment company here. And within 7 months, she was pregnant with our 3rd child. And when her boss, the CEO of the investment bank, came to know of it, he was upset. He was said, hey, you didn't tell us in the interview that you're going to get pregnant. My answer to that was, have you registered on the notice board every time you go to bed with your wife to say that maybe we might have a child? I'm CEO of the company. I'm a male. I'm going to most likely have a child. So if the woman is expected to declare her pregnancy, why isn't the man? So when we talk about equality, let's be honest. Try bringing a little bit raw, good old honesty to any discussion and look at facts. I appreciate all the good things that are being said, and I'm sure that they're well intended, and I'm sure that their hearts are in the right place. why don't we keep our actions in the right place too? We are in the 21st century. We are talking today as if this was 1890.
No, I think that's a very imperative point that you've highlighted, Mr. Hassan, is that, and we had a panel on biases and stereotypes and preferences earlier in the day as well, which is, I mean, talk to any woman or most of the women at the workplace, we're always questioned on maternity. You're going to be, I've personally experienced that myself, that when I got married, suddenly opportunities just went past me because I was, all right, she's newly married, she's soon going to get pregnant, she's going to go on maternity, so she's not, so does that mean that she has lost her credibility is my question as a woman professional there. But having said that, coming to you, Dr. Oleg, that you know, while I am totally aligned with you when you say that vision and leadership have no gender, and I can't agree more with that, but then why the statistics? You look at the World Economic Forum numbers, you look at pick up any statistics on gender, parity or gender equality across the globe, and there is discrimination, there is a difference. So where are we lagging at? What is the gap that we're lagging at, given the fact that leadership, given the fact that vision are not gender specific? So why not show up in numbers then? What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Deepika. I would offer to look at it from different angle. Why not to talk about changing metrics for a start? We measure leadership, we measure diversity in statistical terms. But statistics are something we could manipulate again and again and again and again, right? So this is all wrong. Leadership is about quality. Leadership is not about quantity. Can you talk in leadership about, okay, leadership is about what my people achieved with me leading them. There is no statistics in this. The kids were brought up greatly and they became excellent people, you know, just amazing people because of their mother took care of them. No, can you see that because their mother been taking care of them for 3 hours a day? No. Leadership is all about quality, nothing about it. So if we look at the value created, we would hardly talk about statistics. There are quite a number of companies which dominated by women, and they're having maybe only a couple of guys in their boards. And of course, the majority of companies are still vice versa. For instance, Abdullah said, and I greatly respect his point of view and appreciate it. But the real picture is who brings what on a table. When we promise to have more women in the boardroom, we promise numbers, statistics, and that is quite misleading. What about promising every person in the boardroom will be valued and appropriately regarded and rewarded in terms of kind of value? It would make more organic understanding what we bring together and why we are allies. We're not allies because we need to have 3 women on board. We're allies because I value even 1 woman or 10 women, you know, bringing something important to that table. In fact, it's like our leadership will be judged against our promises. It's a balance of promise, expectations. Met, cool, we won. Meaningless promise, statistical promises, or those things which World Economic Forum, Gallup, and many other statistical things are brought to our mind are misleading us. It's like I can't make 1 woman together, 1 woman happy. I'm trying to make a few unhappy. Not fair, not good at all, right? So I have a simple approach. If we cook together, we eat together, and our guests enjoying that food. It's nothing about having 2 women cooks or chefs and 8 men chefs doing some kind of a statistically satisfactory food. No, it's about what kind of value we create. This is where it must be really, really redrafted, edited, the approach itself.
Thanks for those inputs, Dr. Oleg. But coming to Mr. Hassan here, again, coming to facts, it has taken 21 years since the launch of the startup industry to have its first woman billionaire, right? Why do you think it took so long?
Very interesting, right? So you would assume that we're in 2021. By now, there must be like a ton of these famous examples to be given to say Deepika in Canada is a billionaire startup entrepreneur. Deepika in Chicago is a billionaire startup entrepreneur. Deepika in Finland, and I'm giving you all developed countries. I'm not giving you Asian countries. There's just one lady, just one person, Whitney, who launched Bumble. She's the only. And what surprises me is that are we trying to say that we are looking for quality and we are so stressed about it that we have weaned out all the women of the planet to allow one to be decided as you are good quality, Whitney, now you will be a billionaire. Whereas the men who run loss-making companies, all of the big names, Snapchat, Facebook, Airbnb has massive losses. Okay, let's not talk about quality. Really, let's not talk about quality, because quality means facts. Quality is not an assumption. I cannot say I have a good horse which has never won a horse race, but I have a good horse. He looks good, he sounds good, and he does a good runaround, but he has never won a race. Let's not go into that discussion. The fact is that the men have created so many concepts of barriers. So if you go to any VC, the large ones, Tencent, NEA, Sequoia, you name them, all of them, okay? See how many women are there. Because these are the people who are going to make investment decisions. They're going to say, I like this or I don't like this. I'm a lecturer on entrepreneurship, like your colleague just introduced me, and my last 2 lectures were for Oxford University Back Boot Camp. And I can assure you that the girls, the women, are as equally sharp and smart with coming up with good startup ideas as men. The problem is nobody funds them. The minute they go to investors, whether angel investors or VCs, they start seeing challenges. They get a set of questions that are completely different to the set of questions that come to men. Now, are those questions based on quality? Are those questions based around, oh, we're trying to wean out the best among you? To me, the biggest surprising fact, and I put it out here for everybody to see, typically, and I just had a good meal prepared by my mother, and I was telling my wife, I said, that's the best meal I had. And we all love our mother's cooking, right? The concept of cooking has always been with women, And guess what? The top 15 Michelin chefs in the world, almost all of them are men. Oh my God. Don't tell me there was no quality women. Oh, there was one, by the way. Just one strong enough, determined lady, just like we always do. We point out that 1 or 2. We say, hey, don't look at the 17 men chefs. Look at that one strong Anne from France. I think the reason why we don't have enough women entrepreneurs are 2. Number 1, there needs to be, and I appreciate what your previous panelist, Mr. Mohan Das, was talking about. And I think there needs to be more such initiatives where investors and government bodies are forced, literally forced, to fund women-led startups more. Why don't you create that as a concept? Unlike other countries, India, for example, has concepts of quotas. The Western world does not have it. Why isn't there a quota to promote women entrepreneurship? Because there is a huge issue at the moment. You can look around in the Indian landscape of entrepreneurship. count out the women-led startups, literally count it out. Look at the successful ones. What's that? What's the payment platform in India that's famous? Not PayPal, the other one.
Paytm.
Paytm, Oyo, Ola. Which one is led by a woman? In fact, which one has a woman in top management? So the excuses that we have are plenty. Like you said, oh, you know, I had to take a break on maternity leave. Guess what? By the way, this goes very casually, but it shouldn't. While the woman is at home, she does a lot of care work that is important for the man to succeed. And that care work goes unpaid. And if you value that care work, the home care work of keeping the house up and going, it's in trillions. Why doesn't governments or government bodies or corporate world start looking into that to say, hey, if you are a woman, we have two sets of objectives for you. One, to make sure that you keep the house up and going, because the man needs his sanity to perform. Okay, how many men do you know who will perform well in the office who have a problem at home? So I think when we want to build more women entrepreneurs, we need to give them certain abilities, not just environments. We need to tell them, hey, if you go there, this is all women, go compete. Because at the moment, if you go to any large startup event in any part of the world, I do my lectures around the world, and I can tell you it's the same thing. Participation of women entrepreneurs is less than 5%. Nobody can convince me that that's because only 5% women are good enough to be entrepreneurs. Impossible. They're the highest degree takers around the world. They walk out with more degrees than boys do.
No, I agree with you there. In fact, I myself have read the Harvard Business Review on the questions that women entrepreneurs are put forth with in terms of funding, and the questions that men entrepreneurs are put forth in when it comes to funding. And the Harvard Business Review highlights that the questions thrown to men are progressive in nature. So what are your plans? What are the future thing? And building it up. And the questions thrown at women are slightly digressive in nature in terms of talking about challenges, talking about difficulties, how would you navigate through them and all of that. So there is a difference, there is a bias when we look at even the...
Deepika, one point, sorry to cut you off. Like one of the concepts is that, the argument rather is that women are a little less averse to risk. They're not used to taking risk. I find that a little strange.
Please?
Yeah. Sorry?
Could I add one more point, please?
Yeah. So
yes, we'll just have Mr. Abdullah finish and then I'll take your input there.
Yeah, the reason that I have a problem with trying to deal with that is having an eye for risk is a requirement of a good manager. So if we are going to use that as a negative, then you're basically saying, I'm the investor, I'm giving you money to gamble, literally. But if you're saying, if I'm giving a startup founder money, and that startup founder, male or female, is not used to taking risk, that means that startup founder may have a more stronger business model than otherwise. This is what you need to invest in. And classic example and research from Yale and Harvard show that women-led organizations and startups have more chances of succeeding than men-led. So there's research. This is not me blabbering away to glory. This is research. Okay, so for us to use that even as a pretext of an excuse does not really hold too much ground, because risk is something that you need to stay away from. I know I am from venture capital. We are in the area of risk, but calculated risk, measured risk, risk that has been studied. Sorry, Dr. Ali, go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Ali, please go ahead.
Thank you. One more point. Our success is where our focus. And focus is very interesting thing, because if we talk about very successful startups, it's about being focused on something, on 1 point or 2 points, on something very specific. Very recently, I do coach women, C-suite entrepreneurs, and very recently, this week, my experience asking one of my clients how many times she lost her focus over the day. And she counted at least 30 times in one day she was losing focus, right? So if you're not focused, you wouldn't be successful. But if you're really focused, you are. And as an opposite example, it's a very, I believe, very promising startup. It's called Stiras. And Laurelyn Mays, she's from Florida, I believe. She would do great. She is exceptionally focused. And therefore, I could see that even from day one, it grows, grows, and grows. It's about being focused. Yes, the price for this focus is hefty. Less care for family, less care for own self. So it's quite a payoff price must be considered. And this is where women need more help. In this sense, to wrap it up, behind every successful man is a woman. Behind every successful woman is a man. We should support each other in this sense.
Absolutely. I think it is hand in hand kind of a joint effort that has to come forth. And I totally agree on your point on focus, because, it is ultimately focus that gets you to where you are. But the question on how many translating still remains, and the disparity in the translation still remains, in terms of men and women showing up. So I'm still to understand what is stopping this gap to be bridged, and what needs to be done in terms of the gap to be bridged. I mean, let's not just only talk about India. Global statistics state the same thing. The world's first countries in 200 years have had women representation at the top. Things have been very slow for women, and we are going really slow on it. So what needs to be done? Mr. Hassan, any suggestions on, let's say, policies or anything that the investors should now incorporate when they're looking at women coming up with startup ideas?
So the first thing, Deepika, is all women should stop taking men very seriously. And I'll tell you why. Bill Gates is a very successful man. And one day he said, I choose a lazy person to hire for a hard job because I know that he will do it in an easy way. So the concept of typically telling an HR director, go look for lazy people. Okay. So we men are very good at caveating beautiful lines and lovely. We're still living in the dating world, unfortunately. We are just not too used to marriage, if you know the context here. We like to decorate everything in a very flowery position because it gets us through, it moves us through. We need some real action. We need some real steps. We need corporate world to step up. And I want them to step up in a very, very big way. I want them to say that, hey, listen, I have received in the last year 1 million applications for men and 1 million for women. Then let them show their asset test to the world. Why is there no index to measure this? Because it's convenient. Because it's convenient coming on events like this and saying, we're doing enough, guys. There's no problems here. We have bigger issues to deal with. Well, let me give you a bigger issue. If we had more women participating in economy, we would add $23 trillion in an economy that's suffering today. So it's not like we men are going to do anybody favors here, okay? India, if India had 10%, just 10% more women working, India would add close to $3 billion to its economy, which is struggling. Okay, so we have some real tangible benefits here. Again, so there's no real advantage or benefit for anybody to caveat this in a beautiful way. Okay, what do we need to do? I think men need to take the decision to proactively hire more women. And like I said, set yourself standards. Say, this is my index. I have it online, number of applications received, number of application process, and you will know whether you're gender inequality or not by yourselves. Benefits of hiring.
I just interrupt you there, Mr. Hassan, because there's again an observation that has come from a lot of women who've been in the senior management position where they're made to feel of a token presence. just because people have got to live up to the diversity numbers or certain checklists, women are taken onto senior board positions, but then they have little or no say. So what's your call on that?
Oh, of course. Like I said, we men have many other problems than the ones that are obvious to you and known to you. Until and unless you get enough work. See, listen, if you want to get over something, you need to do it more often, right? If you're afraid of heights, you need to visit height more often, 1 floor, 2nd floor. Our fear of women has to go. That if they are in a challenging position, then we can basically be subdued. And imagine I go to my friend's party and he says, you work for a woman, do you? Okay, and this is a fact. I'm telling you, I've come from a technology world, and this is a fact. Okay, it is as if, please change my unit. I cannot be here, etc. So if you don't have more women, you cannot create a culture, number one. Number two, if you don't have more women coming into your company, that means all the investment you as philanthropists have done in setting up education structures is pointless, useless, and a complete failure. Because the maximum number of honor students and degree holders are women, are girls. So if you're not hiring them, that means something is wrong. Unless you say, we're not looking at degrees, we're just looking at whether you're wearing pants and shirts or saris and kurtas, what are we looking at? Okay, so I think that has to change. Then there has to be specific support to organizations from government sectors to say, like the Scandinavian world does it. And by the way, unlike what people believe, Russia has a lot more women representation in their enterprise business than America. Okay,
Yes.
Scandinavia is a lot more progressive about this when it comes to maternity leaves, etc. Why not balance it out? For example, if a woman in my organization takes maternity leave, give this organization now the benefit of saying, okay, did you take 90 days, 120 days? Now the men in the company can take part of that 120 days for their extra leave. Balance it out. Let the men support this, saying, this is good, I'm getting extra leave. Organizations and HR famous gurus need to put their minds to this rather than always bring up 3 good, successful women in every event and say these are there. So we can actually do this. The investment in women is important for economy. It's no longer a showpiece. Trust me on this. It is important for economy. So until we take serious economic decisions, like Dr. Oleg said, we're not going to find quality. If we have bias within our decision making, and we have so many layers of bias, let alone male, female, we have others too. So let's beat the big one first, because for every 108,000 men in this world, there are 100,000 women. This is how close it is. So let's try to bring that together. And I think I'm glad you brought some very senior enterprise leaders today to this discussion, because they can call this. They can make the change. They can say, hey, listen, we just heard this on Deepika's show on Corporate Diva. We need more women. Plain and simple, we need more women. Because when the government tells you more of this caste and that religion, you do it. Okay, when you're told before a big game, let's bend the knee to say to support Black lives and no to racism. Great. Women are far more than colored people in this world. Women are far more than LGBT community in this world. Let's give them a little bit more attention. So I think some of these corporate leaders have it within them to leave a legacy for the future. The future generations, Deepika, are going to talk about this. And they're going to say, what went wrong? We always talked about progression and improvement. What about diversity? Why was that always a cosmetic thing?
No, I agree. Totally agree with your point of view, Mr. Hassan. Coming to you, Dr. Oleg, tell me one thing. What is that one common thread for women and men that unites them as strong allies for each other? While we're talking about differences of men and women, while we're talking about discrepancies in terms of numbers and all that, what is that one common thing that we can jointly come towards for each other's development?
Thank you. And this is, we all have the same strong desire to build a better future for ourselves and for the next generations. That is something we could build on. It's not about thinking about ourselves. It's about going beyond self. You know, leading people is sacrificing self for others. And if people talk about inequality or pointing, oh, she's a woman or he's a man, I wouldn't deal with them because of a gender, those people are not creating value for others. They're talking about own superiority. We all have ego. Okay, we are humans, but it's a matter to what extent or you keep your ego under control. And if I'm thinking about beyond myself, about thinking about great future for everyone or people, I wouldn't be bothered about this. I need women as men both to be in that game of creating something exceptional. It's about value, how we create value for others.
I think very,
So,
very, very important point that you highlighted was that, forget everything else if you want to just focus on the future, right? For the future, it has to be hand in hand. And we've, in like also Mr. Hassan said, enough of the talks, we've got to walk the talk and show the translation of people walking hand in hand and focusing towards adding value for the next future. And I'm sure, like you also pointed out, otherwise we're going to be questioned. We're going to be questioned at every step as to what have you done all these years in terms of, where are the men, where are the women? So I think keeping a lot of things, even if we park the basics aside and we focus on the one thing, what is it that we want to see in future? And if future is equal, then we've got to take the steps now. And
yes.
for taking those steps, like Mr. Hassan pointed out, bodies like the government or impactful, influencers or people who create that impact, they've got to be talking more about it, and not only talking, then incorporating a lot more of what the talk is.
Exactly.
Mr. Hassan, any words from you?
Yes, I think equality has to be measured in the context of the term that it is, which means that if I am asking a parent to invest in his daughter's education, because I say this is important, right? We see a lot of those campaigns, then it is my duty as a government and as corporate world to give that girl an opportunity, number one. Then it is my duty as a government and the corporate world to evaluate her performance just like his performance, to say, you're a leader or you're not a leader, okay? Then when it comes to the beautiful concept of motherhood and raising children, this is how we will grow as societies. So rather than isolating that as a weakness, let's start looking at it as a strength. And like I said, I'm more than willing that in my own company, if any woman takes maternity leave, I will take her 120 days and divide it pro rata to all the men to say, you guys get extra leave as well. Okay. Then if her husband is working somewhere else, let him have maternity leave as well to look after the kids. We need to create a more progressive society. We need to follow what is happening in the developed world. So I think in terms of steps, Deepika, we need to have steps that are measurable and not loud. We need to have steps that have KPIs and not just slogans. Okay, because a simple thing, if I want a leader, I want a compassionate leader. Show me how many men do you know who are good at showing compassion? How many women that you know who can show compassion? Almost all of them. So I think having more compassionate leadership is in the interest of the business. Recently, I'll not mention the name, a very large technology company decided to appoint a woman CEO, and they clearly said it. They said because she is more fit to get us out of the problems we are in. This is a very large billions of dollars company that appointed a woman. We have a major country in the world, New Zealand, that handled the COVID thing better than everybody else. So I think if Corporate Diva has to come out with this, Corporate Diva needs to say, okay, we're going to come out with a point agenda plan agreed by panelists and attendees and maybe more people to say, this is what we need to do at the education sector. This is what we need to do at the startup sector. And this is what we need to do at the government and corporate sector. And then fill it out to all of these corporates and government sectors and say, would you be willing to accept it? Because discussions is one thing, but application is where everything will come.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, there's a very insightful, comment that's coming from the audience with somebody called Chitupa. Apologies for my mispronunciation. And it says that 95% of my clients are men because organizations' leadership is constituted of men. Also, my individual private clients are all men. So in terms of investment in leadership, it's being done for men. So I'm not too sure where exactly, which part of the world is he from, but that's something that he's facing as well, that leadership development is focused towards men, especially in the area that he's in, and he's giving out those statistics, what he encounters. Now, of course, we need more insight into where he is and what kind of work is he into and all of that. But that's
Deepika,
what the audience
I'm telling you, it's a simple research. If everybody listening today just goes on Google and types out CEOs women in NASDAQ, CEOs women in the listed market India, CEOs women in London Stock Exchange, you will see the numbers. That will decide for everything. And you will know that it's a very, very small minority. And if that is the only minority who apparently is quality or good leaders, and I'm sorry, India was led by Indira Gandhi for a very long time during very troubled times. UK was led by Margaret Thatcher in a very long time in very troubled times. In fact, Margaret Thatcher transformed British Airways from a very bad government-owned asset to a successful international airline. So let's not go there. And I think I must applaud you, and I really appreciate Dr. Oleg's work. He's got some amazing stuff out there. If people can read his books, he's really written some great quality stuff. But Corporate Diva today is raising some very important points, and it would be good if people actually take them seriously. And I think your person who asked the question is a female, so I think you better recognize her as a female before she picks up gender equality on you.
No, I think Corporate Diva conceptually is, not inclined towards any gender. The only thing is that, yes, we've got facts in place, we've got statistics in place. The female gender does need that nudge, does need that push, does need to be highlighted, and enable women to own their credibilities, which somewhere get lost in her journey, in her life cycle as a professional. And when we talk about motherhood, when we talk about maternity, that phase of a woman's life where we've got to bring forth the economic relevance of a woman nurturing the home as well. I think that's something which has been hugely underplayed. It's been, here we're talking about future generations, and here we're talking about impact and equality and all of that. I think being a woman myself, irrespective of the country that I come from, because I've been, I've been poles apart outside of India also for close to a decade, and I realized that this particular phase of a woman, one either gets hugely compromised, and then we're looking at infertility and all of those issues coming in. And then Mr. Pai, on the side when we were conversing before the summit, he made a good observation. He says that if infertility rates rise so high, we will not have the next generation, forget men and women. And when women are there today nurturing that, there's got to be more economic importance given to that fact, and enable her segue through the various phases with equal relevance, equal credibility, equal impact. On that note, any last thoughts from you all before we wrap the session? Dr. Oleg, anything that you'd like to leave the audience with?
When we're raising kids together, men and women, we shouldn't forget that we are living artifacts for the next generation or generations. And everything we do now, we do for them. And we will be judged how we help them to make their life better. So, and that's the value of that summit, Corporate Diva Summit. We're trying to write down what we could do as a clear plan for the next generation. Not to be judged in a bad way, So
No,
thank you very
fabulous.
much.
I think very, very, very good insight there. That at the end of it, if we keep all the other demons aside and just focus on one thing, that you have a baton to hand over.
Yeah.
How is that baton going to look like, right? Thank you so much for that, Dr. Oleg. Very profound. Mr. Hassan, any last notes before we wrap up?
I was born from a woman. I'm married to a woman. I have 2 girl child. I'm proud of all 4 of them. I'm proud of all the women fraternity. I think if I give them the ability to be strong, I have a good feeling they will be much more stronger than me. So if anybody thinks I'm strong, I would invite you to bring more strength to the people who deserve the strength. So I'm open to everybody today here. I'll be happy to mentor anybody on entrepreneurship, but don't stop because of what you see. And everybody needs to support what you do. Deepika, really well done. Hats off to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. It's been such a great summit, a great interaction. And I think this particular panel was great to bring in the other side of the table, to have men come forth and share their perspectives, because I personally also believe that you cannot have progress in isolation of a gender or race or whatever. It has to be inclusive. It has to be hand in hand. It has to be goal-centric. It has to, like in Dr. Oleg's book, as it says, that, it has to be a vision-centric, and that's where leadership is developed. And for all of that, I think this panel in particular had great insights coming from Mr. Hassan as well, where we're also talking about what we've covered so far in the summit of imposter, of that feeling of self-doubt that a woman has, of the biases and stereotypes that she experiences. But more importantly, from this panel, we actually gain hope that there is a better future ahead if we join hands even now and take things forward in the right way. Not only just have discussions around it, have tangible things as rollouts beyond just conversations. So as a platform, we'll be happy to connect with anybody who has certain tangible solutions, who'd like to kind of bring in certain aspects which can make our world more inclusive, more progressive, and we all flourish hand in hand rather than being isolated in one gender or the other. So on that note, thank you so much, Dr. Oleg, for your valuable time and insightful contribution to the panel. And thank you, Mr. Hassan. It's been a pleasure interacting with you, and thank you for your valuable contribution to the panel, to the summit. And definitely, I think with leaders like you both stepping in and kind of sensitizing people on the importance of inclusive way ahead, there is hope. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Dr. Olive and Mr. Hassan. It was an exceptional, sterling, and I would say a mind-blowing, statistics-driven, fact-driven panel discussion by Mr. Hassan and Dr. Olive's very clear inputs. It's very well said that the best ideas are born in the most diverse environment possible. And this was immaculately displayed by these 2 gentlemen. And if men show up interpersonally as a better colleague and friend to women, while making sure that they put the skin in the game and advocate for system change, we are not far away from the transformation what we are looking for. So with that, I would like to request Deepika to please stay on board on the stage with me and request the attendees to kindly take the post-poll questions so that we can see that you have had your takeaways with this particular panel. And I would like to thank specifically the team who has been working behind this all these while.
Absolutely. I will like to take that forward, Hina. It's, alone one can do just so little. Together we can do so much. And that's what the Corporate Diva team has consistently shown and brought forth. And I would like to thank you for being the master of ceremony, for seamlessly navigating one panel after the other, and for all the back-end coordination for the summit. Truly, truly appreciate that. And I would at the same time like to applaud Tanu and Dola Haldar. Tanu has been a silent, behind the scenes force who has worked very, very deeply into the content and curation of the summit. And likewise, Dola, besides working from PepsiCo, voluntarily contributes towards the platform and has been hugely contributing towards the development of the summit and the way it has shaped up. And more importantly, like to acknowledge the men ally here, Indrajit, who's been seamlessly, in terms of the Zoom, seamlessly navigating the panelists, navigating the attendees, throwing up polls, and doing the tech contribution to the summit. Really, really appreciate that. Along with that, my sincere thanks to Social Beat, to the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women in Business, to MTCT Mashav and Keynote, and the Abhinav Bindra Foundation. Unfortunately, Abhinav Bindra was not able to connect with us today because of the medical emergency at home, but we promise tomorrow he will be there as promised by him as well. So we look forward to an insightful conversation with him as well. Thank you all for joining in for the summit today. We've got tons lined up for the summit schedule for tomorrow, which is 2 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And if you'd like to talk about us, if you'd like to share your comments or bring up posts on any of the social media platforms, please do write onto the hashtag #TogetherWeLead. That's the hashtag of the summit. And we would really appreciate if you can incorporate that hashtag into your post. It'll just help us gain more insights as to what has been your experience. So on that note, thank you, dear navigators, dear panelists, dear experts, dear dignitaries, and my entire Corporate Diva team. It's been a pleasure organizing the summit. And